Chapter 1: The Blood Price. The air reeked of iron, smoke, and betrayal. Ilara stood at the cliff's edge, her cloak whipping around her ankles as the storm gathered above. She had grown up staring across this border, across the chasm that separated her people from the wolves of the Blackfang pack. For 20 years they had been her nightmares. Now they were her future. Behind her, the elders waited, stone-faced. Not a word of comfort. Not a single hand lifted to say goodbye. She was not being honored tonight. She was being surrendered. Her father's voice, cold, sharp, unyielding, still rang in her ears. You will go to him. You will end this blood feud. Or you will die here with the rest of us. So here she was. A pawn dressed in ceremonial red. A lamb painted to look like a queen. When the horns blared from across the valley, every muscle in her body tensed. The Blackfangs were here. The war had lasted too long. Decades of raids, executions, kidnapped children, slaughtered hunters. She had seen heads on pikes before she was old enough to shift. She had buried cousins, friends, even her brother after a Blackfang ambush. Her heart still burned with the memory of his torn body. And now, she was expected to share a bed with their alpha. Never, she thought. They can chain me. They can brand me. But I will never bend. The sound of hooves and paws shook the ground. Across the border, shadows emerged from the fog. Wolves the size of horses, their eyes gleaming like molten silver. Blackfang soldiers in armor of dark steel. And at their front him, Ulfakale. He dismounted with the silence of a predator. His black cloak settling around him like wings of a raven. His eyes caught hers across the divide, and her breath lodged in her throat. She had heard the stories, that he had gutted 3 alphas with his bare claws, that he never slept in the same bed twice, that he had a dungeon filled with bones of traitors. But stories were only shadows compared to the reality before her. Broad. His presence radiated command like fire radiated heat. And those eyes. Amber, wolf-bright, hungry. The crowd behind her shifted. Even the elders, who had sworn they would never bow to a Blackfang, lowered their gazes. Ilara of the Moonvale. Kale's voice carried like thunder, deep and resonant. The blood price. The chosen bride. She stiffened at the word. Bride. As though this was a union. As though she had agreed. The war drums from her own side thundered in response. Elder Miran stepped forward, lifting his staff. To end the war, our daughter is yours. Daughter. Ilara wanted to laugh, bitter and raw. She had never been their daughter, not truly. She had been a bargaining chip from birth, cursed by her gender, cursed by her fate. Kale's gaze never left her. Not even when his men crossed the border to seize her arm. His eyes followed her like a hunter watching prey already caught. She resisted. The guards jerked her forward and she stumbled, but her chin remained high. She would not weep. She would not give him that. Kale stepped closer until he towered over her. The rain had begun to fall, streaking across his sharp jawline, soaking his cloak, darkening the leather strapped across his chest. His hand rose, not to strike but to touch her cheek. His thumb dragged slowly, deliberately across her skin, as though tasting the texture of his new prize. Her wolf snarled inside her chest. She flinched back. Don't touch me. The words sliced the silence. Gasps echoed from both sides. Kale's mouth curved. Not a smile. Something darker. You have teeth. But I prefer my mate unbroken. Mate, she spat. I will never be yours. That earned her a low chuckle, one that stirred the hair at the back of her neck. He leaned down, his breath brushing her ear. Then you will be my enemy. Either way, Ilara of the Moonvale. You belong to me now. The journey to Blackfang territory was a blur of mud, rain, and iron chains. They hadn't bound her hands, but the symbolic iron collar around her throat was worse. It wasn't locked, just resting there, heavy, humiliating. A reminder that she was a possession. Kale rode ahead most of the time, silent and unreadable. His wolf prowled beneath his skin, she could sense it, restless and fierce. When his gaze did shift back to her, it burned. Not with lust yet, but with something sharper. Calculation. At the gates of the Blackfang fortress, the drums pounded again. Wolves howled from the towers, their voices rolling like thunder across the night sky. Torches lit the sprawling stone fortress, carved into the mountainside. Her new prison. The gates opened and the people surged forward. Blackfang wolves of every age, their eyes gleaming, their expressions curious, hostile, some even eager. They wanted to see the trophy bride. The peace prize. Whispers cut through the air. She's too thin. She'll never bear strong heirs. She looks proud. Kale will break her spirit. Ilara clenched her fists. She would never let them break her. Inside the fortress, Kale dismissed his warriors with a single gesture. Only 2 guards followed them up the winding stone steps into the high hall. The chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. A throne carved of obsidian dominated the dais, wolf motifs snarling from every angle. Kale stopped halfway and turned to her. "Remove the collar." Her head snapped up. "What? You think I need iron to keep you here?" His amber eyes gleamed. "Take it off. Or I'll do it for you." For a heartbeat, she considered defying him. But she couldn't give him the satisfaction of touching her again. With trembling hands, she unclasped the collar and let it fall with a clang onto the stone floor. "Good," he said softly, though it sounded more like a warning than praise. "Now listen carefully, Ilara. You were taken not as a prisoner, but as my Luna." "I am no Luna of yours," she hissed. "You are," he countered, his voice low and commanding, "because the moment I claim you, the war ends. Your people knew this when they gave you to me. Your father knew it when he signed the treaty with his blood." The mention of her father sliced her like a blade. She wanted to scream, to strike, but she forced her voice steady. "And if I refuse?" His smile was cold. "Then I end the war my way, by slaughtering every last Moonvale wolf." Silence crashed over them. She stared at him, heart pounding, wolf snarling. He meant it. He would burn her world to ash if she resisted. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Monster." Kale stepped closer, towering over her again. "No, little wolf. I am survival. And you, whether you like it or not, are mine." That night, she lay awake in a chamber carved of black stone, staring at the flames flickering in the hearth. The guards had left. The door was unbarred. She could run. She could leap from the balcony and hope her wolf would carry her to freedom. But she didn't. Not yet. Because if she ran, her pack would pay the price. Her father's last command echoed in her head. "You will go to him. You will end this blood feud." Her hands shook as she pressed them to her face. Her wolf growled, restless, furious but helpless. She was no longer Ilara of the Moonvale. She was the blood price. And tomorrow the Alpha would claim her. Chapter 2, The Alpha's Claim. The dawn broke in shades of crimson and gold, but Ilara felt none of its beauty. The Blackfang fortress was alive with sound, wolves training in the yard below, smiths hammering steel, voices echoing through the stone halls. She lay in a bed far too large for one person, staring at the carved ceiling, her body stiff as iron. She had not slept. Every creak of the floor, every footstep outside her chamber door had set her on edge. She expected him to storm in during the night, expected his hands, his teeth, his mark. But Kale had not come. That unsettled her more than if he had. When the door finally opened, it wasn't the Alpha but a woman. A servant, no older than 20, her black hair braided tightly against her scalp, her amber eyes lowered. She carried folded clothes. "Alpha Kale commands that you wear this," she said softly, laying the garments on the bed. "Commands, not requests." Ilara unfolded the fabric. Black silk embroidered with silver wolves. A gown heavy with dominance, designed not for comfort but for spectacle, for ownership. "I won't wear it," Ilara said, her voice cold. The servant's eyes flickered with fear. If you refuse, Alpha Kale will come himself. The threat lingered between them. Ilara's stomach twisted. She wanted to spit, to shred the dress into ribbons, but she forced her shaking hands to slide into the silk. The servant tied the laces, whispering, "Do not anger him today. The council will be present." Ilara's head snapped up. "Council? Yes. The Alpha will present you as Luna before the elders and warriors." Her heart pounded. Public humiliation, dressed up as honor. They would watch her kneel. Hear Kale declare her his. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a conquest. The great hall was filled with wolves. Rows of warriors in black armor, elders with silver hair and stern expressions, women with jeweled collars and piercing eyes. The air was heavy with musk and power, the scent of dominance so thick Ilara could barely breathe. At the far end, Kale sat on his throne. He did not rise when she entered. He simply watched, lounging like a predator too comfortable to chase. His amber eyes raked over her gown, her defiance, her trembling. The drums thundered once. The crowd fell silent. "Ilara of Moonvale," Kale's voice rang out, commanding, unyielding. "Brought to me as blood price. Today she becomes Luna of Blackfang. Today the blood feud ends." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some sounded approving, others bitter. Ilara stepped forward, every instinct screaming to run. The collar of silk clung to her throat like a shackle. Her wolf snarled within, pacing restlessly. Kale extended his hand. "Come." Every eye in the hall fixed on her. If she refused, she would not just humiliate him, she would doom her pack. She forced her feet forward. One step, then another. When her fingers touched his palm, the contact burned, a spark that made her heart leap against her will. His hand closed over hers, strong, steady, dangerous. He rose, towering over her. "Kneel." The word sliced her in half. Her body went rigid. She would not bow. Not to him. The hall grew tense. Warriors shifted, sensing defiance. Elders narrowed their eyes. Kale's grip tightened. His lips brushed her ear as he murmured low enough for only her to hear. "Defy me here, and I will slaughter a dozen of your kin by nightfall. Choose wisely, little wolf." Her stomach lurched. Rage burned her chest, but she forced her knees to the cold stone floor. Gasps echoed. Some smirked, others whispered. She was the Alpha's prize, displayed and broken. Kale lifted her chin with a finger, forcing her to meet his gaze. His amber eyes gleamed with satisfaction, not at her obedience, but at the war he had just won without lifting a blade. "Rise, my Luna." The hall erupted in howls. That night, Ilara was not led back to her chamber. Instead, she was brought to Kale's. The room was vast, hung with dark furs, the scent of pine and smoke lingering in the air. A bed of carved oak dominated the center, its pelts inviting and terrifying at once. Kale dismissed the guards with a flick of his hand. The heavy doors closed. They were alone. Her wolf bristled, every muscle in her body coiled. "If you touch me, I will kill you." Kale's brow lifted. He began to unbuckle his armor, piece by piece, revealing scars carved deep into his chest, his shoulders, his ribs. Each mark told a story of battle, of survival, of blood. "You think I want your trembling?" he asked, his voice calm, cutting. "You think I take pleasure in forcing a woman who looks at me like I'm a beast?" Ilara's lips parted, but no sound came. Kale stepped closer, unarmed yet dangerous. His heat radiated over her. "No, Ilara. If I take you, it will not be as a prisoner. It will be because your wolf begs for mine." Her cheeks burned. Her wolf snarled, confused by the pull in her gut. "You hate me now," he continued, his voice low, almost intimate. "Good. Hate keeps you sharp. But the bond is already working. I smell it in your blood. You feel me, even when you curse me." He shoved him hard. Her palms struck his chest, but he didn't move. He let her rage burn. "You killed my brother," she spat, her voice breaking. "Don't speak of bonds. Don't speak of fate. You are nothing but a murderer. For the first time, Kale's mask cracked. His eyes darkened, shadows swirling in amber depths. He leaned in, his voice rough with something dangerously close to regret. I did not kill him. Lara froze. Her heart slammed. Liar. I don't lie, Kale growled, his wolf flashing through his voice. Your brother was betrayed. By one of your own. The world tilted. Her breath caught. Her wolf went still. Kale stepped back, his gaze burning into hers. Sleep in my bed tonight or sleep on the floor. I don't care. But remember this, Ilara. The war you think you know is built on lies. And I will strip them from you one by one. He lay down on the pelts, his back to her, leaving her standing in the dark with her heart racing and her world cracking. Ilara sank to the edge of the bed, staring into the flames. For the first time since her capture, fear and hatred weren't the only things in her chest. There was doubt, and that was more dangerous than chains. Chapter 3 Wolves in the Shadows. Ilara woke to silence. The fire had burned down to embers, faint orange light flickering against stone walls. Kale was gone. His scent still lingered, pine, smoke, dominance, but his presence had vanished with the dawn. She sat up slowly, her body stiff, her mind restless. The words he had whispered last night gnawed at her like teeth. Your brother was betrayed. By one of your own. She didn't believe him. She couldn't. But the certainty in his voice, the shadows in his eyes, they haunted her. Her brother, Darren, had been Moonvale's strongest warrior. He'd died in an ambush 5 years ago. His body returned shredded beyond recognition. The elders had said it was Blackfang claws. Ilara had sworn vengeance since that day. But if Kale spoke the truth, if someone in her own pack had sold him out, her chest ached. Her wolf prowled restlessly, uncertain. The chamber door creaked open. A different servant entered this time, a man older. His hair streaked with gray. He bowed stiffly. The Alpha commands your presence at council, he said, his voice rough. Ilara's jaw tightened. Commands. Always commands. Never ask. She rose anyway. The gown from yesterday had been replaced by a simpler tunic and cloak, but still black, still heavy with Blackfang symbols. Even her clothes reminded her she was no longer her own. The corridors of the fortress were carved from mountain stone, torches lining the walls. Wolves passed them, soldiers, courtiers, servants. Every one of them paused to look at her. Some sneered, others whispered. A few looked at her with curiosity, but none with kindness. When she entered the council chamber, the air thickened. Kale sat at the head of a long table carved of obsidian, flanked by elders in wolf fur cloaks. Their eyes were sharp, their scents laced with dominance and suspicion. Scrolls and maps littered the table, marked with battle lines and blood. Ilara stood tall, refusing to bow. If they wanted a Luna, they would get one who did not grovel. Kale's eyes met hers. His expression gave nothing away. Sit. Her jaw clenched, but she moved to the empty chair beside him. It was a throne carved smaller than his, but raised higher than the elders. A place of honor or mockery. The council began. Reports of border raids, disputes among clans, rumors of rogues moving through neutral lands. The words flowed like weapons, each elder battling for influence. Ilara said nothing at first, watching, listening. Until one elder, a scarred wolf named Varen, slammed his fist on the table. This peace is a sham, he snarled. Moonvale blood cannot be trusted. The girl should be executed, not crowned Luna. Ilara's wolf bristled. She rose to her feet. Say that again. Varen sneered, showing yellowed fangs. Your people slaughtered my sons. Why should I honor you? Ilara leaned across the table, her voice sharp as steel. Because without me this war never ends. And your pack will keep bleeding until not even your bones remain. The chamber went silent. The elders stared, some furious, others impressed. Kale's amber eyes burned. He didn't stop her. He didn't silence her. He only watched, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. She is right. The words stunned the room. Varen snarled, but Cale's gaze cut him down. This union is not choice. It is necessity. Question it again, Varen, and you question my rule. The elder dropped his gaze, seething. Ilara's heart thundered. She sat again, her hands trembling beneath the table. Cale hadn't defended her. He had used her. But still, something in her chest twisted at the way he had silenced his counsel for her. After the council, Cale led her into the courtyard. The air was crisp, snow dusting the stone. Warriors sparred in the yard, steel clashing, wolves snarling. You held your ground, Cale said, his voice low. I won't be mocked like a servant, Ilara snapped. His lips curved faintly. Good. A Luna should have fire. I'm not your Luna. You are, he countered, stepping closer. You proved it today, whether you meant to or not. She turned away, her wolf restless under her skin. Why did you lie about my brother? Silence. Then Cale's footsteps, steady, deliberate. I didn't. Her chest tightened. Then prove it. His eyes darkened, amber burning. You want proof. Then open your eyes. The traitor is still alive. Still breathing in Moonvale. Lara froze. Who? Cale didn't answer. He leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. Earn my trust, little wolf. Then I'll tell you. Her wolf shuddered, torn between rage and something dangerous. Attraction. She shoved him back, her claws sliding half-formed from her fingers. You disgust me. Cale only smirked. And yet your pulse races when I'm near. That night, Ilara wandered the fortress halls alone. Guards followed at a distance, but none stopped her. She found her way to the library, rows of dusty scrolls and tomes stacked high. She ran her fingers across them, desperate for distraction, for answers. But she wasn't alone. A shadow moved between shelves. A man stepped out, tall, lean, with dark hair and sharp green eyes. Not a warrior. Not a servant. Something in his bearing was different. You must be the Moonvale bride, he said softly, with a mocking smile. Ilara stiffened. And you are. He bowed shallowly. Lucian. Advisor to the Alpha. And, on occasion, his conscience. She frowned. Cale has a conscience. Lucian chuckled. Hidden, perhaps. But it exists. His eyes studied her closely. Tell me, Ilara, are you here willingly? Her laugh was sharp. Do I look willing? No, he admitted. And that may be your greatest weapon. She narrowed her eyes. Why help me? Lucian's smile faded. Because not everyone in this fortress wants Cale to succeed. And not everyone believes peace is worth the price of a bride. A chill ran through her. You mean someone wants me dead? Lucian's silence was answer enough. Before she could press further, footsteps echoed outside. Lucian melted back into the shadows, leaving her alone just as Cale entered. His eyes scanned the library, narrowing. What are you doing here? Ilara lifted her chin. Learning about my prison. Cale stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, his gaze sharp. This is not a prison. This is your kingdom. Then why do I feel like a lamb among wolves? Cale's hand brushed her cheek, softer than she expected. Because you are. For now. Her wolf trembled, torn between fury and something deeper. Something dangerous. And for the first time, Ilara realized. Survival here wasn't just about resisting Cale. It was about navigating the shadows, the whispers, the betrayals waiting to strike from both sides. Chapter 4: Fire in the Hall. The fortress was restless. Ilara felt it the next morning when the horns blew 3 times, summoning the entire pack into the great hall. Servants ran with frantic steps, warriors rushed to their posts, and whispers burned through the corridors like wildfire. Something was wrong. When she arrived, escorted by 2 guards, the atmosphere hit her like a storm. The hall was filled to bursting. Elders stood in their cloaks, warriors in rows, courtiers pressing close, hungry for drama. At the center of it all stood Kale, his expression a mask of steel. On the floor, kneeling and bound in chains, was a prisoner. Her breath caught. He was Moonvale. His scent hit her first. Familiar pine and river musk, the smell of home. Then she saw his face. "Ronan," she whispered. He lifted his head, bruised and bloodied, but his eyes, wolf-bright and desperate, locked on hers. "Ilara!" Her chest ached. Ronan had been her childhood friend, her brother's closest ally. He had taught her how to throw a dagger, how to hide in the forest when Blackfang raiders struck. Seeing him here, chained, was like a knife in her ribs. Kale's voice thundered across the hall. "This wolf was captured on our borders. Moonvale spy. He carries maps of our defenses and letters marked with your elder's seal." Gasps rippled. Ilara's heart raced. "No." Kale's gaze cut to her. "Do you deny it?" Her voice shook. Ronan would never betray Moonvale. Kale stepped down from the dais, his presence swallowing the room. He ripped the scrolls from a guard's hand and threw them onto the stone floor at her feet. "Then explain this." She knelt, trembling, scanning the documents. The ink was Moonvale script, the seal her father's. But her wolf howled in protest. This wasn't right. Ronan's voice cracked. "It's forged. Ilara, you know me. I would never." "Silence," Kale snapped, his wolf bleeding into his tone. Ronan flinched, the chains rattling. Ilara rose to her feet, her blood boiling. "This is a spectacle. You parade him here not for justice but for intimidation." The elders hissed, the warriors muttered. A dangerous silence followed. Kale's eyes darkened, but instead of anger, there was something else. Calculation. "Then you judge him." Her heart stuttered. "What?" Kale's voice rang out. "You are Luna of Blackfang. His fate lies with you. Prove your loyalty, condemn him." The hall erupted in murmurs. Elders smirked, warriors leaned forward. All eyes turned to her. Ilara's throat closed. He was testing her. If she saved Ronan, she would look weak, disloyal. If she condemned him, she would damn her childhood friend. Ronan's eyes burned into hers. "Please, Ilara. You know the truth." Her wolf clawed at her chest, torn. She faced Kale, her voice sharp. "And if I refuse to choose?" Kale's gaze hardened. "Then I choose for you. And I promise, little wolf, my justice is not merciful." The trap snapped shut. Her breath trembled. She turned back to Ronan. His face was bloodied, his eyes pleading. Memories of laughter, of running through the forest as children, of Darren's last night alive. Ronan had been there. He had fought beside her brother. Her voice broke. "Ronan, tell me the truth. Swear to me." "I swear," he rasped. "On my wolf, on Darren's memory, I am no traitor." Tears burned her eyes. She looked back at Kale. His expression was unreadable, but his wolf prowled in his gaze, waiting, testing. Her chest rose and fell, her heart shattering. "I will not condemn him." The hall gasped. Kale's jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, she thought he would strike her down. But then he turned to the guards. "Take him to the dungeons." Ronan was dragged away, chains scraping. His eyes stayed locked on hers until the doors slammed shut. The hall buzzed with fury, confusion, whispers. Kale raised his hand and silence fell. "My Luna shows mercy," he said, his voice cold. "But mercy has consequences. Remember this, all of you. She spares him, so his life is hers to answer for." The crowd dispersed slowly, murmurs trailing after them. Ilara stood rigid, trembling, until only Kale remained. He stepped close, his presence suffocating. "You defied me in front of my council." Her wolf bared its teeth. "I saved an innocent man." Kale's jaw flexed. His hand shot out, gripping her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. His voice was a growl, low and dangerous. "If he betrays us, His blood is on your hands. And I will make you watch. Her pulse thundered, but she didn't flinch. Then I'll fight beside him when the truth comes out. For a heartbeat, their wolves clashed, dominance and defiance sparking like fire. Then Kale released her, stepping back, his eyes burning. You will learn, Ilara, he said softly, almost like a vow. Mercy is weakness. And weakness kills. He turned and left her in the echoing hall, her heart racing, her wolf howling in rage. That night, Ilara couldn't breathe in her chamber. The walls pressed too close, the silence too heavy. She slipped into the corridors, her cloak drawn tight, and made her way to the dungeons. The guards recognized her scent but didn't stop her. Kale had given her authority as Luna, even if she despised the title. The dungeons were carved deep into the mountain, damp and dark, chains rattling in the shadows. Ronan sat behind iron bars, his face bruised but his eyes alive when he saw her. Ilara, he whispered, relief flooding his tone. She gripped the bars. Tell me everything. He leaned forward, voice raw. I was sent to watch the border, nothing more. I never carried maps. Those documents, Kale planted them. Her breath caught. You're saying he staged this? Yes. Test you. To force you into his games. You can't trust him. Her chest burned. But another voice in her head whispered. Or Kale was right. Or the traitor is closer than you think. Her hands trembled on the iron. I won't let him kill you. Ronan's eyes softened. You always were braver than Darren. But don't let him break you. Promise me. Her throat tightened. She nodded. When she left the dungeons, shadows followed her. She could feel eyes watching, whispers trailing. The fortress was alive with schemes. And in the center of it all was Kale, alpha, enemy, mate. Her fate was tangled now, too tightly to escape. And soon something would snap. Chapter 5: Blood at the Ritual. The Blackfang fortress never slept, but tonight it hummed with ritual anticipation. Ilara's maid, a nervous slip of a wolf named Lyra, laced her into a gown of black silk threaded with crimson runes. The fabric clung to her curves, the neckline daring, the sleeves heavy with embroidery that shimmered in torchlight. It is the binding feast, Lyra whispered, eyes lowered. The Alpha presents you to the pack. You must stand beside him as Luna. Ilara's wolf growled low. She hadn't chosen this title, this alliance sealed by chains. Yet refusing the role meant humiliation, not only for her but for Moonvale. When the horns blew, she was led into the grand courtyard. Torches blazed in a ring. Wolves gathered in circles, their eyes glowing amber, gold, crimson. Meat roasted on spits. Drums pounded a primal rhythm. Above them, the moon swelled fat and silver. At the center stood Kale. He wore a cloak of wolf pelts, his chest bare, scars carved across his skin like war maps. His eyes gleamed when they found her. The pack howled as she approached, the sound shaking her bones. Tonight, Kale's voice carried, we celebrate not conquest but unity. Our enemies bow, their daughter stands here, mine, Luna of Blackfang. The wolves roared approval. Ilara's cheeks burned. She stood tall, refusing to shrink. Kale clasped her hand, lifting it high. Sparks jolted through her skin, the bond flaring. The crowd chanted her name, mocking, claiming, binding. But then, shadow moved. Her wolf snapped to attention, ears pricked. She caught the glint of steel between bodies in the crowd. Her lips parted. Kale! The dagger flew. She reacted before thought. She shoved him back, the blade slicing across her arm instead of his heart. The courtyard erupted. Wolves lunged. Shouts filled the air. Kale's roar split the night. He tackled the assassin before the blade struck again. Blood sprayed, the drums falling silent in shock. The attacker was dragged into the torchlight. A wiry wolf with Moonvale's crest burned into his skin. Gasps rose. All eyes whipped to Ilara. Kale stood, chest heaving, his hand slick with the assassin's blood. His gaze turned on her, sharp and lethal. Your pack tries to slit my throat in my own den. Ilara staggered back, her wound throbbing. No, I didn't know. I swear it. The assassin struggled against chains, snarling. Moonveil will never bow. Not to you, not to her whoring loyalty. The words cut deep. Cale seized the wolf by the throat and slammed him to the ground. His claws extended, ready to rip out his heart. The crowd screamed for blood. Stop! Ilara cried, stepping forward, her arm bleeding. Don't kill him yet, we need answers. Cale froze, his hand poised like a blade. His eyes flicked to her. For a moment the world held its breath. Then with a snarl, he dragged the assassin upright. You dare bring knives to my feast. You dare shame my Luna. Who sent you? The wolf spat blood. Moonveil bows to no mongrel king. Kill me. Others will come. Cale's claws sank deeper. The assassin's cries echoed across the courtyard. Ilara's stomach churned. She could smell death coming. Cale! Her voice rang sharp. If you kill him, the truth dies with him. Keep him alive. Prove to your pack you are more than slaughter. His nostrils flared. The crowd growled disapproval. But Cale held her gaze, his wolf raging, his pride a storm. Slowly, he released the assassin, shoving him into the guard's grip. Chain him. Break him. Tomorrow he talks. The pack howled in fury at the denial of blood, but Cale silenced them with a roar that shook the torches. He turned to Ilara. His hand seized her wounded arm, examining the slice. You bled for me. His words weren't soft. They were sharp, as if testing her motives. Her breath trembled. I saved you. His eyes burned into hers, the bond pulsing hot. The crowd was still watching, their hunger for dominance and weakness raw. Cale lifted her arm high, blood dripping down her wrist. See her, he roared. Moonveil's daughter sheds blood for Blackfang. She is mine and she stands with me. The courtyard erupted in howls. Approval, lust, rage. It all blended. Ilara's heart raced, her body trembling. She hadn't chosen this show, but Cale had turned her defiance into a weapon. Later, when the feast descended into chaos, he pulled her into the shadows of the fortress. His grip was firm, his wolf restless. You risked yourself, he growled. Why? Her chin lifted. Because if you die, this fragile peace dies with you. And I'm tired of war. His eyes flickered. For a heartbeat, vulnerability cracked his armor. But then his mouth curved into something darker. You think you saved me, little wolf, he murmured. But tonight, you bound yourself tighter than chains ever could. Her pulse hammered. I bound nothing. Cale leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. You bled for me. My pack saw it. You're theirs now, body, soul, and loyalty. Ilara's wolf snarled, torn between fury and something dangerous, something magnetic. You twist everything into power. His lips almost brushed hers. That's what alphas do. Before she could retort, a horn blast shook the fortress walls. Urgent, frantic, not ceremonial. Cale stiffened. Intruders. War was back on their doorstep. Chapter 6: Chains and Truths. The alarm bells still echoed when Cale stormed into the fortress dungeons. Ilara followed, her wound hastily bandaged, her heart hammering from more than pain. The assassin had been dragged below, chained to a chair of iron. The scent of blood and damp stone pressed heavy in the air. Guards lined the walls, their eyes burning with hunger for vengeance. Cale's wolf prowled beneath his skin, restless, violent. He strode toward the prisoner, voice a low growl. You tried to slit my throat. Tell me who sent you, and your death will be merciful. The wolf spat blood at his feet. I'd rather choke on my own tongue than serve you. Cale's jaw flexed. His claws extended, scraping against iron as he gripped the chair. The sound shrieked like teeth breaking. So be it. He raised his hand. Stop. Ilara stepped forward, her voice ringing. Every eye turned on her. The prisoner sneered. Cale froze, then slowly looked at her. His expression dangerous. "You said keep him alive," he reminded, tone sharp. He spits defiance. "What use is he?" Ilara's wolf bristled, but she didn't back down. "Pain alone won't break him. He's trained to withstand it. You need strategy, not brutality." The guards murmured uneasily. No one spoke to their alpha like this. Cale tilted his head, studying her. Then, to everyone's shock, he lowered his claws. "Show me, little wolf," he murmured. "Break him without spilling blood." Ilara's stomach tightened. She hadn't expected him to call her bluff. But the prisoner's eyes burned with hatred, and if she failed, her words would mark her as weak. She stepped closer, ignoring the stink of blood and iron. She crouched before the assassin, meeting his gaze. "You think you're a martyr," she said softly. "But Moonvale abandoned you the moment they sent you here. They knew you'd fail. You're a pawn, nothing more." His lips curled back in a snarl. "Lies." "Is it?" she pressed. "If Moonvale truly wanted peace, they'd send me home. If they truly wanted victory, they'd send an army, not one knife. You were meant to die here, your blood sparking war." The assassin faltered only slightly. His wolf flickered. Doubt whispered at the edges of his rage. Cale's eyes gleamed, watching every movement. "Go on," he urged softly, predator amused. Ilara leaned in closer, her voice dropping. "You want revenge? Then give me names. Tell me who ordered your death mission. Expose them. That is the only way you can strike back before they bury your name in dishonor." The assassin's breath hitched. His eyes darted, the mask of defiance cracking. Cale caught it instantly. He gripped the wolf's chin, forcing him to look at Ilara. "You heard her. Speak." For a long moment silence pulsed. Then, hoarse and bitter, the assassin whispered. "Counselor Vera. She promised me glory if I brought your head." Gasps filled the chamber. Vera, a Moonvale elder, one of Ilara's own kin. Her heart lurched. She staggered back. "No." Cale's gaze snapped to her, suspicion burning. "Your blood conspires against me in my own halls." Ilara's throat tightened. "I didn't know. Vera, she raised me. She." The assassin laughed bitterly. "You were always her pawn too." Cale slammed his fist against the iron chair, silencing the room. His gaze locked on Ilara, voice low and lethal. "Oh, even your blood seeks my death." Ilara's chest constricted. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Her own kin had used her as a bargaining piece, then tried to spark war through her failure. Cale stepped closer, his wolf pressing against hers like a storm. "Tell me, Ilara, are you loyal to me now? Or do you still bleed for them?" The room held its breath. Guards leaned forward. The prisoner smirked. Ilara's spine straightened. "I bleed for no one who betrays me," she said, voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "Not even Moonvale." Her wolf howled inside, torn between grief and fury. But the words were truth. She would not bow to traitors. Cale's eyes burned with satisfaction, but also something darker, heavier. He seized her wrist, pulling her closer. His voice a low snarl meant only for her. "Good. Because the more they betray you, the more mine you become." Her breath caught. Heat flared where his skin touched hers. Controversy dripped from his words. Possession, dominance, twisted into intimacy. The assassin spat again, snarling. "You'll never break Moonvale. Kill me now." Cale's lip curled. "Oh, I will. But not today. Today you rot, and tomorrow you talk again." He turned sharply. "Guards, leave us." The soldiers obeyed, dragging the prisoner back into his chains. The dungeon doors clanged shut, leaving Cale and Ilara alone in the torchlit gloom. He studied her in silence, his eyes gleaming gold. "You saved my life. You unmasked your own kin. And yet—" His hand brushed her bandaged wound. I don't trust you. Ilara met his gaze, unflinching. Good. Because I don't trust you either. His mouth curved into a dangerous smile. Then we're honest. That makes us stronger. The bond between them flared, pulsing like fire and venom all at once. And Ilara knew, the blood war was far from over. It was only evolving. Chapter 7, The Alpha's Gamble. Dawn bled grey over the fortress walls when Kale summoned his war council. The long hall smelled of smoke and iron, maps unfurled across a table carved from a single slab of black stone. Wolves in armor lined the chamber, their eyes fixed on their alpha. Ilara stood beside him, a place she hadn't chosen but couldn't refuse. Every gaze weighed on her, suspicion thick as fog. She was the enemy's daughter, a prize, a pawn. Yet last night she had shed blood for their alpha. Kale spread his hands over the map, voice low but lethal. Moonveil strikes from within. Their counselor sends knives to my throat. They mistake our treaty for weakness. Murmurs of rage rippled through the hall. One wolf slammed his fist against the table. End them, Alpha. March on their lands and burn them down. Kale's eyes flicked to Ilara before returning to the map. No, not yet. War is easy. Victory is not. If we march now, they will call us oathbreakers. The southern packs will turn against us. The room bristled. One warrior snarled. You'd stay your claws because of politics. Kale's wolf surged beneath his skin, golden eyes flashing. I stay my claws because I mean to win. Listen well. Moonveil bleeds from within. Betrayal festers in their council. We do not crush them with steel. We poison them with doubt. Ilara's breath caught. Poison, not war. His plan was dangerous, brilliant, controversial. Kale's finger stabbed at the map. We spread word of Counselor Vera's treachery. Let the packs whisper. Let Moonveil fracture. And while they tear at each other, we make their Luna. He paused, eyes sliding to Ilara. The symbol of our unity. The hall erupted. Some wolves growled approval, others snarled in fury. She is Moonveil's daughter, one roared. They'll never accept her as Luna. Kale's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we make them. She bled for me before all of you. They saw it. They know it. Every story we tell from this night forward will paint her as Moonveil's betrayal and Blackfang's salvation. Ilara stiffened. Her voice cut through the uproar. You would use me as propaganda. Kale turned to her, unflinching. I will use everything I have to win. Her wolf bristled, fury clashing with a grudging respect for his ruthless honesty. And what if I refuse? The council leaned in, hungry for her defiance. Kale's gaze burned into hers, his voice low, dangerous. Then your silence brands you traitor to both packs. Refuse, and you become nothing but another prisoner in my dungeon. The hall held its breath. Ilara's heart pounded, every instinct screaming to defy him. But her wolf whispered something darker, power. If she played his game, she could shape the narrative, turn the weapon back on him. She lifted her chin. Then I'll stand beside you. Not as your pawn, but as the Luna who chooses her role. Gasps rippled. The council murmured, startled. Kale's smile deepened, satisfaction and surprise mingling. Good, he murmured. You're learning. But before triumph settled, a scout burst into the hall, armor smeared with ash. Alpha. Riders at the eastern border. Moonveil banners. The room exploded into chaos. Kale's wolf surged, hunger for battle flashing in his eyes. So they come crawling already. Ilara's stomach clenched. If Moonveil's warriors were here, it could only mean escalation. War wasn't waiting, it had arrived. Kale slammed his fist onto the stone table, rattling the map. Summon the guard. Tonight, we show Moonveil what it means to threaten Blackfang soil. He turned to Ilara, his hand seizing her wrist with a grip that burned. His voice was a growl meant only for her. You wanted choice. Tonight you'll have it. Stand with me, Luna, or be buried with your pack. The words were chains and fire all at once. Ilara's heart thundered as the war drums began to beat again. Chapter 8. The Test of Loyalty. The eastern gates groaned open at dusk. Smoke trailed across the horizon where Moonvale riders waited, their banners of silver and blue snapping in the wind. Ilara's heart clenched at the sight. She recognized the crest, the crescent moon with a wolf's head. Or what had once been home, before they bartered her life away like coin. Kale rode at the head of his guard, his black stallion stamping impatiently. His warriors flanked him, steel glinting. And Ilara was forced to ride at his side, clad in the same dark silks she'd worn at the binding feast. Her wrists still bore faint marks from chains, a truth he hadn't hidden. The air sizzled with tension as the two groups faced each other. Moonvale's envoy dismounted. A tall wolf with frost in his beard and fury in his eyes. Ilara knew him. Lord Kieran, her father's war captain, a man she'd once trusted to guard her at festivals. His gaze flicked to her, widening in disbelief. "Ilara," he rasped. "Goddess, what have they done to you?" Ilara's throat tightened, but Kale spoke before she could. His voice was iron. "She stands where she belongs, beside her Alpha. She is Luna of Blackfang now." Corin's face twisted in rage. "Lies! You've broken the treaty. She was meant to be a guest, not a slave." The Blackfang warriors snarled, hands on weapons. Kale remained calm, his smile lethal. "She is no slave. She bled for me before my entire pack. Ask her yourself if you dare." Ilara froze as every eye turned to her. Kale's challenge wasn't a request, it was a command. The bond between them pulsed, pushing her toward the brink. Her wolf clawed at her chest. This was the moment. If she faltered, Moonvale would see her as captive. If she bent, Blackfang would see her as weak. Kieran stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Ilara, child, tell me the truth. Do they hold you against your will?" Her lips parted. She could see the plea in his eyes, the faith he still held in her. But she also felt Kale's gaze like fire on her skin, a reminder of the assassin's blade, of the blood already spilled. If she said yes, war would explode on this field. If she said no, she damned her ties to Moonvale forever. Her voice came out steady, though it tore her inside. "I stand with Kale. I am Luna of Blackfang." The words dropped like stones in a river. The ripples were instant. Kieran staggered back, his eyes wide with betrayal. "No, no, they've poisoned you." Kale's wolf surged with satisfaction, his hand clamping her reins possessively. "You heard her. She has chosen. Tell your council their daughter is no prisoner. She is my queen." The Blackfang pack howled approval. Moonvale's riders snarled in fury. Kieran's face hardened, grief turning to rage. If that is truly her choice, then she is no daughter of Moonvale. She is dead to us. Ilara flinched as if struck. Her wolf whimpered deep inside. "Dead to us." Kale leaned close, his whisper sharp as steel. "Good. Let them cut their ties. You're mine now, in blood and bond." Tears burned her eyes, but she forced her chin high. If Moonvale would cast her out, then she would not show them weakness. Kale raised his voice, echoing over the field. "Ride back, Kieran. Tell your masters the blood war shifts. Their betrayal rots them from within, and their Luna now wears Blackfang's crown." Kieran spat into the dirt. "Then you've declared war with your own tongue. And war you will have." The riders wheeled their horses, banners snapping as they vanished into the twilight. Silence followed, heavy as the grave. Kale turned to Ilara, studying the tears she refused to shed. His hand brushed her cheek, mockery and hunger mingling. "You severed your past with one sentence. Do you regret it?" Ilara met his gaze, her voice hoarse but steady. "Regret is for the weak. I will not give them that." His smile curved darkly. "You're stronger than even I imagined." But inside, Ilara's heart howled. She had just buried her pack with her own words. and the bond that chained her to Kale burned hotter than ever. The blood war had not ended. It had only drawn its first fatal line. Chapter 9: Fire in the Council Hall. The Blackfang fortress roared with triumph that night. Torches blazed along the walls, shadows leaping as warriors poured into the great hall. Wolves thumped their fists against tables, mugs spilling ale, voices echoing Kale's name like a battle hymn. And at the center of it all sat Alara, draped in black and silver, her place fixed at Kale's side. She didn't eat. She barely drank. Every laugh, every boast, every cheer scraped against her skin. Hours ago, she had torn the last thread to Moonveil with her own voice. The image of Corin's betrayed eyes burned into her skull. Kale raised a goblet, his voice slicing through the din. Tonight we feast not on victory, but on inevitability. Moonveil sent their envoy, and our Luna declared her allegiance. Before their very eyes she chose Blackfang. No blade forced her, no chain bound her tongue. The hall erupted, chants shaking the rafters. Luna, Luna, Luna. Ilara's stomach twisted. Every syllable of her supposed choice was now fuel for his war machine. Kale slammed his goblet down. They will twist it, of course. Cry slavery, whisper poison. But the truth is ours to tell. Our Luna rejected her own blood to stand with us. Let Moonveil tremble, because their wolves now know the loyalty of their daughter lies here. A warrior shouted, "She is proof the goddess favors Blackfang." The others roared, banging weapons, some bowing toward Alara as if she were already carved into legend. Ilara forced herself still, her face an unreadable mask. Inside she burned. Kale wasn't just spinning words. He was rewriting her soul in the eyes of the pack. Her nails dug crescents into her palms beneath the table. She couldn't contradict him, not here, not before this sea of bloodthirsty eyes. To do so would paint her as weak, even traitorous. But silence was a chain too. Kale leaned closer, his voice pitched for her alone, a dark caress in the chaos. "Do you see? With a single sentence, you've become my sharpest weapon. You'll break Moonveil from within faster than any army could." Her lips barely moved. "And what if I break you instead?" He chuckled low and dangerous. "Then I'd die with a smile." The council was called forward. Elders and captains, scarred wolves with eyes like cold stone. They crowded around the high table, bowing their heads slightly to Kale, though none dared match his gaze. One elder, Marek, spoke. "Alpha, if Moonveil disowns the girl, their fury will be swift. They'll march." "They were already marching," Kale snapped. "Now they'll stumble. Their people will whisper of betrayal, of weakness. Their daughter crowned Luna of their enemy. They'll choke on the shame." Another captain smirked. "We should parade her. Send word to every pack. Let them see Moonveil's jewel polished in Blackfang's crown." The hall cheered at the suggestion, voices rising like a storm. Ilara's chest constricted. Parade. To be paraded as proof of her own betrayal. She stood suddenly, the bench scraping. The hall fell quiet, hundreds of eyes pinning her. Her heart hammered, but she forced her voice steady. "Do not mistake me for a jewel to polish. I am not a banner to wave, nor a trophy for your feasts. Am Luna. Treat me as anything less, and you dishonor your Alpha's choice." The silence was thunderous. The words hung heavy in the air. Kale's eyes glimmered with something between pride and danger. He rose slowly, placing a hand on her shoulder, not silencing her but claiming her, reminding all who listened whose side she stood on. "You heard her," Kale said, his voice sharp as a blade. "She is not a trinket. She is your Luna. And you will respect her as such." The pack roared approval, slamming fists to tables again. The danger passed. Now. But when they sat again, Kale's grip lingered on her arm, his thumb pressing warning circles against her skin. "Careful, little wolf. Defiance in my hall is a gamble. Play it wisely and they'll see strength. Play it poorly, and they'll smell rebellion." Ilara met his gaze, her voice low, defiant. Then perhaps they should learn the difference between strength and chains. His lips curved into that maddening half-smile. And perhaps you should learn when to bare your teeth, and when to bite. The feast dragged on, but Ilara barely heard it. Her thoughts churned. She had struck a spark tonight, but sparks could start fires, or burn their bearer alive. When the hall finally emptied, Cale dismissed the guards and closed the heavy doors. The silence was suffocating. He leaned against the table, watching her. Not a predator now, but something more dangerous. An alpha intrigued. You challenge me before my own wolves. You risk everything with your tongue. Ilara stepped forward, her eyes bright with fury. You twist my words, you parade my pain, you use me as a weapon. What would you have me do? Smile while you carve out my soul. Cale's wolf stirred behind his gaze, raw and primal. I would have you survive, Ilara. Even if survival tastes like ash. She stopped inches from him, the bond thrumming like a live wire. Then hear me, Cale. I will play your game. I will wear your crown. But never mistake obedience for loyalty. I may stand at your side, but the moment you falter, I'll burn you with the fire you've lit inside me. For the first time his smile faltered. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe even hunger. You may be the death of me yet, Luna. Ilara's heart hammered as she turned away. Her wolf snarling in agreement. If Cale thought he could forge her into a weapon, he was right. But he'd learn soon enough, she was no blade to wield. She was fire. And fire chose what it consumed. Chapter 10 Wolves in the Shadows. The fortress quieted after the feast, but Ilara couldn't sleep. The echoes of chanting still haunted the stone walls, Cale's wolves praising her as though she'd chosen them freely. She walked the balcony outside her chamber, night air sharp with pine and smoke. The moon hung high, swollen, watching. Somewhere in the forest below, a wolf howled, lonely, wounded, or warning. Her chest ached. Was it Corin's voice carried on the wind? Or only memory? A shuffle of boots caught her ear. She turned. One of Cale's younger warriors, Riven, stood in the torchlight at the far end of the balcony. He bowed stiffly, but his eyes were searching, not submissive. Luna, he said. May I speak freely? Ilara's instincts flared. She nodded. If you dare. Riven glanced around before stepping closer. His voice dropped low. Not all wolves here worship Cale as blindly as the others. Some of us remember what we lost in his wars. Brothers, sisters, mates. Ilara's heart jolted. Was this an opening? Or a trap laid to test her? Riven's jaw tightened. I saw you stand against him tonight. I saw the fire in your eyes. If you're truly Munvale's daughter, then you're not his weapon. You're our chance. Her breath caught. Chance for what? To end this endless bloodshed, he said. From within. The torchlight painted half his face in shadow, and for a moment he looked like every wolf who had ever lost someone to Cale's campaigns. Grief sharpened into resolve. Ilara stepped closer, her voice hushed. Do you risk your life speaking to me this way? He gave a humorless laugh. Every day in Blackfang is a risk. But better to die for truth than live on my knees. The bond in her chest pulsed, Cale's presence tugging faintly, even when he wasn't near. If he sensed too much emotion bleeding through, he'd come hunting. You must leave, Ilara whispered. If Cale finds you here. He won't. Riven's eyes burned. But if you ever decide to burn him down, Luna, some of us will stand with you. The words left her reeling. Support from inside Blackfang itself. She wanted to seize it, cling to it. But trust was dangerous currency. Before she could answer, a shadow loomed at the balcony doors. Her breath hitched, every muscle going rigid. Riven bowed instantly, covering his tracks. Alpha! Cale's gaze swept the scene, lingering on Ilara's parted lips, the space between her and the soldier. His eyes narrowed. What are you doing here, Riven? Cale's voice was soft, too soft. Riven bowed lower. Guard duty, Alpha. I was ensuring the Luna was safe. Kale studied him for a long, dangerous beat, then dismissed him with a flick of his hand. Go! Riven disappeared into the shadows, his steps brisk, heartbeat thundering in Alara's ears even after he'd gone. Kale turned to her, wolf burning just beneath his skin. Do my warriors flock to you already, little Luna? Should I be jealous? Alara steadied her voice. Perhaps they flock because you give them no choice but to find hope where they can. Kale stepped into her space, close enough that the heat of him tangled with the night chill. His eyes locked on hers, unreadable, dangerous. And where do you find hope, Alara? She swallowed hard, every instinct screaming to keep her secrets buried. Not in chains. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. Careful. Chains can be invisible. Sometimes they're woven from loyalty, from power. From the pull of a bond neither of us asked for. Her chest ached where the bond thrummed, answering him no matter how she resisted. She hated it. She hated that part of her wolf stirred for him, even as her heart bled for Moonvale. I don't mistake chains for bonds, she said. And I won't mistake fear for loyalty either. Kale's gaze sharpened, his wolf pushing at the edge of his control. For a terrifying second she thought he might grab her, kiss her or worse, remind her in some primal way that she belonged to him. Instead he stepped back. You play with fire, he said quietly. One day it will burn you. She met his gaze without flinching. Maybe. Or maybe I'll learn to wield it. The next morning, whispers spread through the fortress. Some said the Luna had silenced the council like an alpha herself. Others said she'd defied Kale and lived. Alara walked the corridors, head high, watching the wolves bow reluctantly, their eyes flicking to her when they thought she wouldn't notice. Doubt was creeping into Black Fang like water through cracks. She found herself in the training yard, where young wolves sparred in the dirt. The clash of claws and fists rang out as instructors barked orders. Riven was there, bruised but sharp, drilling with others. When his eyes met hers across the yard, he didn't bow. He nodded, subtle, defiant. Alara's pulse quickened. There it was, the first ember of something Kale couldn't control. She turned before Kale could catch her staring, her thoughts blazing. Black Fang was not invincible. Its cracks were everywhere. Warriors grieving, soldiers questioning, whispers in the dark. If she was careful, if she was bold enough, she could turn those cracks into fractures. And fractures into collapse. The blood war might yet end, but not the way Kale imagined. Chapter 11, The First Fractures. The Black Fang fortress was built for strength, not beauty. Stone walls, iron gates, no softness to break the harshness. But Alara had begun to see something Kale hadn't. Strength wasn't always in stone. Sometimes it was in silence, in the way wolves glanced away too quickly, in whispers that died when she entered. She walked among them every day now. Not caged, not paraded. Kale allowed her freedom inside his walls, perhaps believing the bond was enough to keep her tethered. Perhaps it was arrogance. Either way she used it. At first, the warriors watched her with suspicion, muttering under their breath. But she didn't flinch. She asked questions in the kitchens, lingered in the training yard, watched the healers at work. She listened, always listening. And slowly things shifted. A cook slipped her extra bread, whispering, "For the Luna." A healer murmured, "My brother was killed in Kale's raid. I'm glad you spoke to the council." A warrior bowed and muttered, "Your courage shamed them." Each word was a crack in Kale's fortress. That night, as she returned to her chambers, she found a folded scrap of parchment slipped beneath her door. She unfolded it with trembling hands. "If you wish to speak freely, come to the East Tower after moonrise." Alone. Her wolf bristled. Trap. Or opportunity. She almost burned the note, but her instincts, sharp, restless, refused. If she ignored it, she'd lose a chance to test the depth of Blackfang's fractures. When the moon rose high, Alara wrapped herself in a dark cloak and slipped through the silent halls. Every creak of stone made her heart race. Every shadow could have been Kale. The east tower was colder, wind whistling through the arrow slits. She climbed the spiral stairs, each step echoing like a drumbeat. At the top 3 figures waited. Wolves, 2 men, 1 woman, all marked with Blackfang scars. The woman stepped forward. Luna. Ilara kept her back straight, though her palms sweated. You called me here. Speak. The woman bowed her head. We are not Kale's loyalists. We've lost too much to his hunger for war. If you stand against him, we'll stand with you. The tallest man nodded. Riven wasn't wrong. You give us something we haven't had in years. A reason to hope. Ilara's throat tightened. This was dangerous. More dangerous than anything she'd done. If Kale discovered this meeting, heads would roll. Hers included. But her wolf surged inside her chest, whispering of fate, of fire, of possibility. You risk your lives for me, she said softly. Why? The man's voice cracked with grief. Because Blackfang is rotting from the inside. Kale can't see it, but we live it every day. And if Moonveil and Blackfang destroy each other, none of us will have a home left. You might be the only one who can stop it. Ilara swallowed hard. She had dreamed of saving her people, of ending this war. But hearing it spoken by Blackfang wolves, Kale's own, set something alight in her veins. I can't promise safety, she whispered. But I can promise this. I will not let Kale use me as his weapon forever. If there's a chance to end this bloodshed, I'll take it. Even if it kills me. The woman's eyes shone. Then you won't be alone. They clasped her hands, one after another, a silent pact forged in shadow. When Ilara finally returned to her chamber, Kale was waiting. He sat by the fire, golden eyes catching the flames. His posture too casual to be anything but deliberate. Late walk? He asked, voice smooth, dangerous. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Did he know? Had he followed her? I couldn't sleep, she said evenly. Kale studied her for a long moment. Then, with infuriating calm, he rose and crossed the room. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch both tender and possessive. Be careful, little wolf. The night is full of teeth. She forced herself to meet his gaze. So is the day. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. His eyes burned, searching her face as though he could peel back her secrets. Then he smirked and stepped back. Sleep, Luna. Tomorrow the council meets again. And you'll stand beside me. She nodded, her heart still thundering. When he finally left, Ilara sank to the floor, her hands shaking. He didn't know. Not yet. But the bond between them was dangerous. If her emotions betrayed her at the wrong time, Kale would sniff out her rebellion like blood on snow. Still, she clutched that memory of the tower meeting tight. For the first time since being dragged into Blackfang, she wasn't alone. The fractures were real. And if she played this right, they would spread until even Kale couldn't hold the fortress together. Chapter 12 Blood on the Maps. The council chamber was colder than the rest of the fortress, its stone walls bare but for weapons and maps. The air smelled of wax, iron and wolves. Ilara stood beside Kale at the head of the table. His warriors and elders crowded around, their eyes flicking between the maps sprawled across the oak surface. Red ink marked rivers and valleys. Black daggers pierced parchment where Kale planned his strikes. Marek, the oldest counselor, tapped a gnarled finger on one valley. Moonveil patrols here are thin. Strike now and their defenses will buckle. Kale leaned forward, eyes burning with the thrill of war. We don't strike patrols. We strike hearts. Their villages. Their fields. We starve them until their alpha kneels. Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. Ilara's blood chilled. She saw not ink on maps, but faces. Children she had played with, elders who had told her stories by firelight. If Kale's plan succeeded, Moonveil would drown in blood and ash. Her wolf snarled inside her. She couldn't stand silent. Not here. Not when her people's fate was being carved into maps. She spoke, her voice steady despite the weight of every eye. You speak of starving them, but a starving wolf does not kneel. It fights until the last breath. Attack their fields, and you won't break Moonvale. You'll forge them into monsters who will never stop coming. The room stiffened. A low growl rippled from one captain, but Cale lifted his hand, silencing them. His gaze locked on her. And what would you suggest, Luna? That we feed them? A cruel laugh rolled around the table. Ilara held her ground. Strike their pride, not their children. If you want to break Moonvale, take their warriors in battle, not their innocents in the fields. Otherwise, you'll inherit nothing but graves. A heavy silence followed. Some of the younger wolves glanced at her, uncertain. Marek scowled, his lips curling. She dares lecture us on war, he spat. Cale's voice cut through like a blade. She dares because she is Luna. And I will hear her counsel. Ilara's heart jolted. He hadn't dismissed her. He hadn't silenced her. He was testing her, perhaps even enjoying watching her set fire to his counsel. Cale spread his hand over the map. Our Luna speaks of pride. Moonvale's Alpha is stubborn, but his pride is his leash. If we cut deep enough in the right place, perhaps we pull him by it. The captains muttered, some nodding. Ilara pressed forward, sensing the smallest crack. Then face them in the open. Call for a duel between alphas, or between champions. Make it a test of strength, not slaughter. Marek snarled. She schemes to save her people. Yes, Ilara snapped back before Cale could speak. Because if you kill every last one of them, what victory do you have? Sh cannot bow. Corpses cannot serve. But if you break them with honor, at least some may bend. The words hung like smoke. Cale's gaze lingered on her, sharp and unreadable. Then he chuckled low and dangerous. Perhaps the little wolf understands war better than my oldest counselor. Marek bristled. Alpha! Enough, Cale growled. His dominance slamming into the chamber like a storm. The air grew heavy, wolves bowing their heads under the weight. This council is mine to command. And my Luna's voice will be heard. Ilara's pulse hammered. She had won barely. But her victory came with a cost. Now the entire council knew she was a threat. When the meeting broke, wolves filed out with dark looks. Some spat at the ground near her feet. Others whispered. But a few glanced at her with something else. Something like respect. Cale lingered behind, studying her with a predator's patience. You challenge me before my own council, he said quietly. And yet I let you. Ilara folded her arms, refusing to shrink. Because you know I was right. His lips curved in a dangerous smile. Or because I enjoy watching you bite. He stepped closer, his wolf brushing against hers through the bond, hot and demanding. But beware, Ilara. Each time you bare your fangs in my hall, you sharpen the knives at your back. Some of them will want your blood. Her voice was ice. Then let them come. For a heartbeat silence. Then Cale laughed, low, rough, startled by her defiance. Goddess help me, you'll be the ruin of us all. As he left, Ilara's knees nearly buckled. Her gamble had worked, but for how long? In the shadows of the corridor, she caught sight of Riven. He stood half-hidden, his face taut with urgency. When their eyes met, he pressed his fist to his chest in silent salute. The cracks in Blackfang's walls were widening, and Ilara was the one driving them apart. Chapter 13 Knives Behind Smiles. Ilara felt the shift in the fortress the moment the council meeting ended. The halls were colder, voices hushed, eyes sharper. The respect she had earned from some was drowned out by the resentment of others. Every bow felt forced, every murmur laced with venom. She wasn't imagining it. Cale's wolves were predators, and she had just stepped into their den as something more dangerous than prey. Competition. By midday, she knew the council was plotting. She heard it first from the kitchens. A scullery girl dropped her tray when Ilara entered, cheeks pale. "Luna," she whispered, then hurried away. Minutes later, a cook leaned in, muttering through clenched teeth. "They curse your name behind closed doors. They say you shame the Alpha. Be careful." Her wolf bristled. "But let them speak." Their fear meant they knew she had power. But power drew knives. That night, Riven sought her out again, this time in the training yard. The moon hung low, silvering the dirt and steel. He moved like a shadow, eyes sharp. "They're moving against you," he said without preamble. Ilara's chest tightened. "Who?" "Marek for one. And a few captains loyal to him. They see you as a threat. Worse, they think Kale is blinded by you." She frowned. "Blinded?" Riven's jaw tightened. "They think he lets you speak because the bond clouds his judgment. They whisper that you've bewitched him." Her stomach twisted. A witch, a manipulator. That was how they'd paint her. And wolves who believed that would not hesitate to put her in the ground. "Then I need to be careful," she said. "No," Riven growled, stepping closer. "You need to be dangerous. The more they whisper, the weaker you look. If you want them to fear you, you can't just defy Kale. You have to prove you can stand alone." His words hit deep. She thought of the tower meeting, of the wolves who had sworn to her. If she faltered now, if she acted timid, those fragile sparks of loyalty would die. She drew in a breath. "What do you suggest?" Riven's eyes gleamed. "Challenge them. Publicly. Not Kale, you'd lose. But one of his captains. Win, and they'll see you as more than Kale's shadow." Her heart lurched. She had trained with Moonveil, yes, but she was no seasoned warrior. Facing one of Kale's bloodthirsty captains. It was madness. And yet, wasn't everything madness now? "Which one?" she asked quietly. Riven's lips curved in something like respect. "Marek's hound. Captain Vare. He'll never turn down a challenge. And if you humiliate him, you humiliate Marek." The plan was reckless. Dangerous. But her wolf stirred, restless, hungry. "I'll do it," she whispered. The next day, Ilara entered the training yard in full view of Kale's warriors. Clad not in silks, but in leather she had demanded from the armory. Her hair braided tight, her chin high. Whispers rippled like wildfire. "Luna. Here." Kale himself appeared at the edge of the yard, curiosity gleaming in his golden eyes. He folded his arms, saying nothing, but his presence turned every head. Ilara stepped into the dirt circle. Her voice carried clear. "I challenge Captain Vare. Before the eyes of the pack. Not to the death, but to show that the Luna is no trinket." The yard exploded with laughter, jeers, growls. Vare, a hulking brute with scars across his face, spat in the dirt. You'd break before I laid a hand on you." "Then prove it," Ilara shot back. The crowd howled for blood. Kale said nothing, only watching with sharp interest. The duel began. Vare lunged first, fast despite his bulk. Ilara barely dodged, rolling through the dirt, her wolf urging her to shift. But she couldn't, not yet. She needed to win with her mind, not raw strength. Vare came again, claws flashing. She twisted, letting his momentum carry him past. She remembered every lesson Moonveil's trainers had taught her. Use your opponent's size against them. Don't meet force with force. He grabbed her arm, twisting. Pain seared, but she slammed her knee into his ribs, earning a grunt. The crowd roared. For minutes they clashed, her smaller frame darting, dodging, countering. Vare's frustration grew, his strikes wilder. He wanted to humiliate her, but she was turning his fury into weakness. Finally, as he charged, she sidestepped and slammed his own weight into the ground. Her foot pressed to his throat before he could rise. The yard went silent. Ilara's chest heaved, sweat dripping, but her voice was steady. "The Luna is no trinket. Remember that." For a moment nothing. Then wolves began to howl, some mocking, some in awe, some uncertain. Kale's smile was sharp as a blade. He stepped into the circle, pulling her arm high. You see, my Luna is fire, and those who doubt her will burn. The crowd erupted again, this time not with laughter but with something new. Fear, respect, curiosity. Ver snarled as he rose, humiliated but alive. His glare promised vengeance. Ilara met it with cold fire. Let him hate her. Let them all hate her. Because hate could be wielded too. That night, when Kale cornered her in their chambers, his eyes burned with dangerous heat. You could have been killed. Her voice was steady. But I wasn't. His wolf pushed at the bond, demanding, wanting. You're mine, Ilara. You don't need to prove yourself to them. Yes, she said fiercely. I do. Because if they see me as only yours, then I'll never have power of my own. For once, Kale didn't have an answer. His silence told her everything. She had unsettled even him. And in that silence, Ilara smiled. Because the fractures in Blackfang were growing. And now, she was the hammer striking at the cracks. Chapter 14 Shadows in the Council. The training yard victory rippled through the fortress like wildfire. By morning, every wolf in Blackfang had heard of the Luna who had bested Captain Ver. Some whispered it with awe, others with venom. Ilara walked through the halls with her chin high, but she felt the weight of every stare. Respect clung to her shoulders like armor, but so did hatred, sharper and heavier. Kale had not spoken of the duel since that night. He watched her more closely now, a predator measuring whether his prey had teeth sharp enough to wound him. But it was Marek she feared most. The old counselor had sat silent during the duel. His eyes narrow, his lips thin. She hadn't seen him since, but she could feel him working, whispering in the dark corners of the fortress. And she was right. Marek gathered his allies in the council chamber after midnight, the torches low, shadows thick. Ver nursed his bruises in the corner, his pride still bleeding. She makes a fool of us, Marek hissed, his voice rough. And Kale lets her. Worse, he lifts her above us. If this continues, she'll wield power over the pack itself. One of the younger captains frowned. The wolves cheer her now, even those who mocked her. She showed strength. Strength! Marek snapped. A trick. She humiliated one warrior, and now she struts like a queen. She is Moonveil. Never forget it. Every word from her lips is poison, designed to spare her own kind and weaken ours. Murmurs rippled. Some nodded, some hesitated. Ver growled. Let me kill her. Quietly. An accident in the yard or on a hunt. No one will question. Marek raised a hand. No. Kale would not forgive it. His bond to her is too strong. Kill her outright, and he will turn his wrath on us. We must be subtle. Another captain leaned forward. Then how? If Kale shields her, what opening is left? Marek's eyes gleamed. Turn Kale against her. Let him see she is not a gift from the goddess, but a curse. Let him believe her loyalty is a lie. How? Marek smiled, cold and thin. By giving him proof. Or at least something that looks like it. The room fell silent. And so the knives were sharpened. Ilara felt it first as a shift in Kale himself. In the days after the duel, he was colder. His questions sharper, his gaze heavier. He pressed her about her time in Moonveil, about the names of her allies, about the bond she still held to her pack. One evening, as they walked the battlements, he stopped suddenly, his hand clamping around her wrist. Tell me the truth, he said, his voice low, dangerous. If Moonveil's Alpha came here tonight and offered you freedom, would you run? The bond between them thrummed, hot and tense. Ilara's heart pounded. If she lied, he would feel it. If she told the truth. She lifted her chin. I would run if it meant saving my people. But not if it meant leaving them to die. His jaw clenched. So you admit it. Your loyalty is not to me. Her voice cut back like a blade. I never claimed it was. You didn't take me for loyalty, you took me to end a war. Remember that. For a moment, his wolf pressed hard against hers, dominance crashing like a wave. She thought he would drag her to her knees. But then he released her, his eyes unreadable. Careful, Ilara. There are those who want me to see you as a traitor. Do not give them the proof they seek. Her stomach twisted. Proof. Someone was feeding him doubts. She thought of Marek. The shadows. The whispers. The game had shifted again. That night, as she sat alone in her chamber, Riven appeared at her door. He slipped inside silently, his face grim. They're moving against you, he said. Harder than before. They've started spreading word that you still pass messages to Moonvale. Her blood ran cold. Messages? How? Riven's jaw tightened. They planted a letter. One of Moonvale's scouts intercepted near the border, carrying orders supposedly written by you. They'll show it to Kale soon. Ilara surged to her feet. What does it say? That you're urging Moonvale to hold, that you'll sabotage Blackfang from within. Her hands shook with fury. It's a lie. Of course it is, Riven growled. But lies are sharp if the blade is placed right. And Marek knows where to strike. Ilara pressed her hands to her temples. Then Kale will kill me. No, Riven said firmly. Not if you move first. Not if you turn this on them before they can tighten the noose. She looked at him, desperate. How? Riven leaned close, his eyes hard. Find the cracks. Expose their treachery. Prove the letter false before they show it. Or, he hesitated, then finished darkly, remove Marek from the game entirely. The weight of his words pressed on her chest. Remove. Kill. She had never killed before. But in Blackfang, survival was painted in blood. Ilara closed her eyes, her wolf snarling within. The knives were out. And if she wasn't careful, the next cut would be hers. At dawn, Kale summoned her. The council chamber was heavy with tension. Marek stood tall, a parchment in his hand, his eyes gleaming with triumph. Kale's gaze burned into her. They say this is yours. Marek stepped forward, offering the letter. His voice was a serpent's hiss. Proof, Alpha. Proof that the Luna still belongs to Moonvale. Ilara's blood turned to ice. This was it. The moment they had prepared. She reached for the letter with steady hands, though her heart thundered. And as her eyes skimmed the forged words, she made her choice. She would not bow. She would not beg. If Blackfang wanted a Luna drenched in fire, then fire she would become. Chapter 15. The Letter of Betrayal. The parchment burned in Ilara's hands. Each line was a dagger aimed at her throat. Hold fast, Moonvale. The Alpha of Blackfang grows blind. Soon I will fracture him from within. The war will tip in our favor. Every word a lie. Clever one. Written in a hand close enough to hers that Kale might doubt. The council chamber watched her with hungry eyes. Wolves leaning forward, ears straining for weakness. Marek stood like a vulture, his smirk hidden behind a mask of false solemnity. Kale's voice cut through the silence. Is this yours? Ilara met his gaze, forcing her wolf to still. He could scent lies. He could feel weakness through their bond. She would give him neither. No, she said, her tone clear, cold. It is not mine. A murmur swept the chamber. Marek struck, his voice dripping venom. Convenient denial. But the letter was carried by a Moonvale scout, caught on the very border where her kin still skulk. Who else could have written it? Ilara lifted the parchment higher. A wolf who wishes me dead. A wolf who fears the strength I've shown. A wolf who hides behind ink instead of teeth. Some wolves shifted, glancing between her and Marek. Kale's eyes narrowed. You accuse. Ilara's wolf snapped within her. She bared her fangs, not in fear but fury. I accuse. This letter is forged. And the paw that forged it is here. Marek's face twisted. Alpha, do you hear her? She seeks to divide us. She plays the victim while she bleeds us to her pack. But Ilara wasn't finished. She strode to the map table, slamming the letter onto its surface. Look at the ink. Smell it. She ripped the parchment in half, shoving the edge toward Kale. Fresh. Too fresh. If this had been carried across rivers and forests by a scout, the scent would have faded. But it reeks of our own ink, our own parchment. Kale's nostrils flared. His wolf pressed against hers through the bond, testing, weighing. The room shifted. Doubt seeped in. Marek sputtered, his composure cracking. Alpha, she twists truths with a silver tongue. Then why, Elara cut him off, voice sharp as a blade. Does the letter bear the council's cipher? Stunned silence. Kale's eyes snapped to the torn parchment. Elara had seen it the moment she touched it. A faint mark pressed into the corner, a seal used only within Blackfang's own council chamber. Her heart pounded. She was gambling with every breath. Only those who sit at this table could stamp such a mark, she said, her voice rising. So tell me, Marek, how does Moonvale carry Blackfang's seal? The chamber erupted. Growls, curses, arguments overlapping. Wolves turned, their eyes sharp now not on Elara, but on Marek. Marek staggered, then straightened, his voice a roar. She lies. She deceives you all. But the poison had already been planted. In his direction. Kale slammed his fist onto the table. The sound cracked through the chaos, silencing all. His gaze burned first at Elara, then at Marek. Enough, he snarled. The tension was a blade drawn tight. One wrong word would spill blood across the floor. Kale rose slowly, towering, his wolf thick in the chamber. If there is treachery, I will root it out. I will taste every word for truth, every heart for rot. And should I find betrayal among my council, I will not hesitate to tear it out. His eyes locked on Marek, and for the first time the elder flinched. Elara's chest heaved. She had turned the knife back on her accuser, but the danger had not passed. The chamber reeked of distrust now, and blood was already promised. As the council dispersed in uneasy silence, Kale caught her arm. His breath was hot at her ear. His words low enough for her alone. You fight like a wolf cornered, he murmured. But tell me, are you protecting yourself? Or hiding something from me? His grip lingered before he released her, walking away with the slow confidence of a predator who knew he still had her caged. Elara stood frozen, the shredded letter clutched in her hand, her pulse roaring in her ears. She had survived this round. But Marek would not stop. And Kale was beginning to wonder if his Luna was his salvation, or his ruin. Chapter 16 Venom in the Shadows. The fortress did not sleep easily after the letter. Whispers ran like rats through the halls, slipping into every ear. Wolves spoke Elara's name in both reverence and suspicion. By dawn, she knew Marek had moved again. The first sign came in the dining hall. She entered to a sudden hush, the scrape of spoons and clatter of mugs stalling. A pair of warriors she had trained beside the day before refused to meet her gaze. Others watched openly, eyes narrowed. When she sat, their voices resumed, low, sharp, full of venom. Moonvale bitch. She'll bleed us from the inside. Kale's blinded by her scent. Her wolf stirred, lips peeling back. But she forced herself to stay seated. To bare her fangs now would prove them right. Instead she ate slowly, every mouthful tasting of ash. Later, Riven found her in the stables, brushing down a restless mare. His face was tight with urgency. They've poisoned the pack against you, he said. Marek's telling anyone who'll listen that you planted that seal yourself to cover your trail. Elara froze, the brush slipping from her fingers. That's madness. It doesn't matter if it's madness, Riven said. It matters if it sticks. Her chest tightened. And Kale? Riven hesitated. He hasn't spoken. But silence can be dangerous. If he doubts you, he won't show it until the knife is already at your throat. Elara clenched her fists. She wanted to scream, to tear into the lies choking her. But rage would solve nothing. What would you do if you were me, she asked. Riven's gaze was grim. I'd slit Marek's throat and bury him in the woods. Her stomach lurched. And prove them right. That I'm a traitor, a murderer. Well, if I kill him, I damn myself. Riven's eyes softened, just a flicker. Then you'd better find a way to kill his lies instead. That night Marek struck again. Cale summoned her to his private chamber. The firelight was low, shadows dancing over maps and weapons. He stood by the window, his back to her, shoulders taut. Marek tells me you still dream of Moonvale, Cale said without turning. His voice was measured but edged with something sharp. That you call for them in your sleep. Her breath caught. A lie twisted from her nightmares. She had whispered her mother's name once, half asleep, not knowing Riven had heard. Had Marek bought even him? I don't, she said firmly. Cale turned, his eyes dark, wolf burning beneath. Look me in the eyes and swear it. The bond between them pulsed hot, demanding truth. She stepped closer, every inch of her trembling but unbroken. I swear it. My dreams are mine. Not Moonvale's. His gaze searched her, piercing. For a long, tense moment, the silence stretched until it was nearly unbearable. Finally he exhaled, his wolf easing back. If you lie, Ilara, I will know. And I will not forgive. Her throat tightened. Then you will know I speak truth. Cale studied her a heartbeat longer, then turned back to the window. Go. And beware the shadows. They grow hungrier each night. When she left, she found Riven waiting in the corridor, eyes shadowed. He doubts me, she whispered. Riven shook his head. He doubts everyone. That's Cale's way. But Marek is patient. He'll bleed you slow until even Cale believes you've cut him. Her heart pounded. Then I must move faster. Riven's mouth quirked, a ghost of a smile. Now you're thinking like a wolf. The next day, Ilara began her counterstrike. She walked openly through the fortress, meeting every stare, every whisper. She trained harder in the yard, sparring until her muscles screamed. She spoke to warriors others ignored, offered words where Marek only offered commands. She did not plead innocence. He showed strength. And wolves watched. Some turned away, still poisoned. But others began to murmur differently. She was fierce. She was bold. She was not hiding. Marek saw it too. And it drove him to darker corners. That night, he gathered his loyalists in secret. There, still nursing his wounded pride. 2 captains with grudges older than Cale's reign. A pair of young wolves desperate for favor. She is winning hearts, Marek growled, pacing like a caged beast. If Cale does not see her treachery soon, the pack itself will split. We must force his hand. Ver leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Then let us stage her betrayal. Give Cale not words but blood. Marek's grin was a knife. Yes, let her be found where she should not be. With evidence no wolf can deny. The conspirators leaned close, their whispers a web tightening around Ilara's throat. By dawn the trap was set. And Ilara, unaware, slept with her wolf restless at the edge of dreams. Chapter 17 The Trap. The fortress felt too quiet that morning. Too watchful. Ilara rose with the dawn, the bond between her and Cale humming faintly in her chest. He was awake already, she could feel his restlessness. His wolf pacing somewhere above in the war tower. She dressed quickly, trying to shake the unease gnawing at her. The air itself seemed thick, as though waiting for something. When she stepped into the courtyard, a pair of guards nodded stiffly but didn't meet her eyes. Another turned his back. Her wolf bristled. Something was wrong. By midday, Cale summoned her. The council chamber was packed, more wolves than usual filling the corners, their faces grim. Marek stood at the center, a parchment in his hand, smugness radiating like heat. Cale's face was stone. What is this? Ilara asked, her voice steady though her heart thundered. Marek lifted the parchment. Proof. He handed it to Cale, who unrolled it slowly. Ilara's breath caught. It was a map, one of Blackfang's own patrol routes, detailed with shifts, rotations, blind spots. The kind of document that, if it fell into Moonvale hands, could gut the pack's defenses in a single night. Her blood went cold. This, Marek said, his voice loud enough to carry to every corner, was found hidden beneath the Luna's bed. Gasps rippled through the room. Wolves growled, teeth bared. Ilara's knees nearly buckled. That's impossible, Marek sneered. Impossible. Or inevitable. She came from Moonvale. She bleeds Moonvale. Did you truly think she would lie in our bed and not in our coffers? Cale's eyes burned into hers, unreadable. Is it true? No, she snapped, stepping forward. I've never seen this before in my life. If it was under my bed, it was placed there. Marek spread his arms, mocking. Always the victim. Always the excuse. Her wolf snarled, but she forced herself to breathe. To think. Search my chambers, she said, turning in a circle to face the crowd. Search every inch. If I am a traitor, you will find more than one scrap of parchment. But you won't, because this is not mine. Some wolves shifted uncertainly. But others growled louder, spurred by Marek's venom. Kale slammed the map onto the table. The room fell silent. Enough, he said, his voice like iron. His gaze fixed on Ilara. You deny it. Then prove it. Her breath caught. How? His wolf pressed against hers, fierce, demanding. Stand trial. The room erupted again. Trial. Not words, not persuasion. A ritual of wolves, where truth was forced into the open under the eyes of the goddess. Marek's smile was cruel. He thought he had won. Trials were dangerous. If Ilara faltered, if she wavered, the pack would tear her apart. But Ilara lifted her chin, fire burning through her veins. Then call it. I will stand. The chamber shook with howls, some for blood, some for justice. Kale's eyes lingered on her, sharp, searching. For a flicker of a moment, she thought she saw doubt crack his mask. But then he turned, his voice ringing out. Tomorrow at dusk, the Luna will stand trial before the pack. The decision was final. Ilara's fate now hung on a blade sharper than any knife. That night, she sat in her chamber with her back pressed to the wall, her wolf restless. Riven slipped inside, his face pale with fury. They planted it, he hissed. I scoured the patrol logs. That map was drawn 2 nights ago. Marek forged it himself. Ilara's chest tightened. Then help me prove it. Riven shook his head, despair shadowing his eyes. Trials don't weigh parchment or logic. They weigh hearts, fear. If the pack believes you're guilty, the goddess will feel it in the circle. And she does not show mercy. Ilara swallowed hard. Then I must make them believe the truth. Riven gripped her hand, his voice low. If you fail, they'll tear you apart in front of him. And Kale. His jaw clenched. Kale may let them. Ilara squeezed back, fire burning in her chest. Then I won't fail. She would not let Marek write her death in ink. Tomorrow she would write it in blood and fire instead. Chapter 18. The Trial of the Goddess. The moon hung swollen and low, spilling silver fire over the fortress grounds. Wolves gathered in a wide circle, hundreds of them, their eyes burning like stars. The air throbbed with anticipation, with bloodlust. At the center of the circle lay the trial stone, black as obsidian, streaked with ancient scars. Every pack member had bled upon it at least once, their loyalty tested beneath the eyes of the goddess. Tonight it would taste her blood. Ilara stood barefoot, her hands bound in ritual rope, though she knew the bonds were more for show than restraint. Wolves didn't need rope to kill. Kale stood across from her, cloaked in shadow and authority. His wolf loomed close to the surface, golden eyes gleaming. He was not just Alpha tonight. He was judge, executioner, conduit of divine will. Marek prowled at his side like a viper, smug and satisfied, certain his trap had already sprung. A horn blew. The circle shivered with howls. Kale's voice thundered. Ilara of Moonvale. Luna of Blackfong. You stand accused of treachery against this pack. of placing our secrets into enemy hands. How do you plead? Her voice rang out clear, cutting through the howls. Not guilty. The words rippled through the wolves, some growling, others pausing, uncertain. Kale nodded once. His tone deepened, ritualistic. Then let the goddess decide. Step forward. Ilara's feet carried her to the stone. Her wolf stirred, fierce, refusing to cower. She knelt, placing her palm on the cold surface. Instantly, it drank her warmth, a shiver running up her spine. Kale cut his palm with a ceremonial blade and pressed it to the stone beside hers. Their blood mingled, hissing as it sank into the cracks. The bond between them flared, sharp and undeniable. The crowd hushed. The trial had begun. A voice rose, not Kale's but the whisper of the goddess through him. His wolf a vessel. Speak truth, Luna. Bare your soul. If you lie, you will burn. The wolves growled in unison, echoing the divine weight. Ilara drew in a shaky breath. I did not plant that map. I have never betrayed this pack. I have shed blood for you. I have bled on these stones. Came unwilling, yes. But I stand here still. By choice. The stone pulsed beneath her hand. Heat rippling through her veins. Her wolf cried out, pain lancing her chest. Gasps erupted. Some wolves howled. She lies. Others snarled in confusion. Marek's voice cut like a blade. She speaks half-truths. She came unwilling, that is no loyalty. The goddess feels her doubt. She will tear us apart from within. The stone burned hotter, testing her resolve, searching her heart. Ilara clenched her jaw, tears stinging her eyes. Well, she would not break. I doubted. Yes, she shouted, voice cracking. I doubted this bond, this pack, even him, she jerked her chin toward Kale, because he tore me from my home. But doubt is not betrayal. My blood has defended these walls. My teeth have defended your children. I am no traitor. The trial stone flared with light. Heat seared her palm, but it did not consume her. Instead, the flames curled around her hand like a crown. The crowd roared in shock. Some wolves dropped to their knees. Others backed away, fear in their eyes. Kale's chest heaved, his wolf straining against his skin. But Marek wasn't finished. He lunged forward, holding up another scrap of parchment. Lies. She speaks sweet to the stone, but I have more proof. The wolves snarled, restless, caught between faith and fury. Kale's eyes snapped to Marek. Enough. But Marek bared his teeth, stepping closer to the circle. She will doom us all. I say. He never finished. The trial stone erupted in flame, blasting a shockwave through the air. Wolves stumbled back, howling in terror. Ilara staggered but stood firm, her palm glowing white-hot, her wolf howling in triumph inside her chest. The goddess had spoken. Not guilty. The pack fell into silence, awestruck. Kale stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. For once, his mask cracked, fear, awe, and something dangerously close to desire flashing in his gaze. Ilara pulled her hand free, smoke curling from her palm. She lifted it high. The goddess knows my heart. I am Luna. I am no traitor. And if any wolf dares say otherwise, step forward now. Not one did. The silence broke into 1,000 howls, the pack bowing their heads in reluctant unity. All but Marek, who stood rigid, hatred burning his eyes. And Kale, who watched her with a storm brewing in his chest. Tonight she had survived. But tomorrow, she knew, the war would truly begin. Chapter 19. Whispers of Rebellion. The trial fire still burned in Ilara's palm when the circle dispersed. Wolves drifted back to their dens in uneasy silence, their howls echoing like ghosts across the valley. No feast followed, no chance of victory. The pack was unsettled. Kale said nothing as he left the ritual ground, cloak billowing behind him. His silence was worse than any roar. It pressed heavy on Ilara's chest as she followed, guards flanking her like shadows. Marek lingered at the edge of the circle, lips curled in a snarl. His eyes never left her, and for the first time, Ilara saw something worse than rage in them. Calculation. Inside the stone keep, Kale dismissed the guards. The great hall's fire blazed, yet the air felt cold. "You should have burned," he said at last, his voice a low rumble. Her chest tightened. "But I didn't. That stone has never spared one accused of treachery." His golden eyes flickered with suspicion. "Never." Ilara stepped closer, though her knees trembled. "Then maybe your goddess saw the truth." Kale's hand shot out, gripping her chin, forcing her to look into his blazing eyes. His touch was bruising, but his gaze betrayed confusion more than cruelty. "You make me weak," he whispered as though confessing a sin. Her breath caught. "Or maybe I make you see." For a heartbeat, the air between them cracked with something sharp and unspoken. His grip loosened, then fell away. He turned from her, shoulders tense. "Leave me," he muttered. She wanted to demand answers, to scream, but she obeyed. She left him standing before the fire like a man at war with himself. That night, whispers slithered through the fortress. The stone spared her. She must be chosen. Or she tricked it with sorcery. The Alpha falters. Perhaps the goddess has forsaken him. Marek fed those whispers like a wolf stoking a flame. He prowled from den to den, his voice smooth, venomous. "She bewitched the stone," he told the younger warriors. "Kale is blinded by her scent. He would see us all slaughtered for a human-born witch." To the elders, he whispered of weakness. "The Alpha bends where he should break. If he cannot keep his Luna in chains, how will he keep us safe?" By dawn, the fortress buzzed with unease. Ilara heard the murmurs as she fetched water, as she passed the training yard. Eyes lingered on her, some filled with awe, others with suspicion sharp enough to cut. She carried the bucket back to her chamber, slamming it down harder than she meant to. "Careful, Luna," a voice drawled. He turned. Riven, Kale's beta, leaned against the doorway, arms folded. His eyes, pale as winter ice, studied her with quiet calculation. "You enjoy watching me squirm, don't you?" she snapped. Riven's lips twitched in something close to a smile. "I enjoy watching truth reveal itself." And last night truth came screaming. Her anger faltered. "You believe I'm innocent. I believe the stone does not lie." His smile faded. "But the pack believes what they're told. And Marek is whispering loud." Her stomach nodded. Then Kale must silence him. Riven's gaze darkened. Kale hesitates. He has always tolerated his brother's poison. But poison left unchecked spreads. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Be wary, Luna. The trial proved your heart. But it also painted a target on your back." Then he was gone, leaving her with the cold echo of his warning. That evening, Kale summoned his war council. The chamber filled with alphas of allied packs, generals and elders. Ilara stood at his side, her presence a provocation in itself. Maps sprawled across the table, blood-red ink marking borders and enemy encampments. "We strike within the week," Kale said, his voice like stone. "Moonvale will not wait for us to debate. They gather their armies even now." The elders murmured uneasily. One of them, a gray-furred wolf named Garan, cleared his throat. "And what of the trial, Alpha?" Pack stirs. Some doubt the stone's verdict. Kale's jaw tightened. The goddess spoke. "That is the end of it." Marek smirked from the far side of the table. "Or perhaps it was the beginning. The pack will not bleed for a Luna they do not trust. You risk division on the eve of war." A growl rumbled in Kale's chest. "Careful, brother." But Marek only spread his hands, feigning innocence. "I speak for those too afraid to speak themselves." Ilara's pulse pounded. She could feel the wolf's eyes on her, weighing her worth. She lifted her chin, letting her voice cut through the tension. "If any wolf doubts me, let them face me. I fought in your battles. I stood in your trial. I stand here still. Do you?" Gasps rippled around the table. No Luna had ever spoken so boldly. Kale's eyes flickered to hers, part fury, part something else entirely. But before he could speak, Riven stepped forward. The Luna is right. Division is death. If we bleed as one. Or we do not bleed at all. The room quieted. For a moment, unity glimmered like fragile glass. But Marek's smile lingered. That night, as Ilara lay in her chamber, a chill crept under the door. She sat up, sensing movement in the shadows. A whisper hissed through the air. You should have burned. Her wolf bristled. She snatched the dagger from her bedside and turned. A figure melted from the dark. Not Marek. A young warrior, his eyes glazed, his movements jerky, as though driven by another's will. His blade flashed. Ilara moved on instinct, steel meeting steel. Sparks flew. The youth snarled, striking again and again, strength not his own guiding his arm. Marek sent you, she spat, parrying hard enough to drive him back. The boy's mouth twisted into a grimace, words not his own tearing from his throat. The pack will not follow accursed Luna. He lunged. She ducked, slamming her dagger hilt into his jaw. He crumpled unconscious. Her chest heaved, heart pounding. She stared at the boy, realizing with horror what Marek had done. He had used wolf magic to bend the boy's will. This was no longer politics. This was war within their walls. And she had survived the first attempt on her life. Chapter 20 Knives in the Dark. The fortress woke to chaos. The boy who had tried to kill her was dragged through the courtyard at dawn, wrists bound, eyes wild with confusion. He begged, swore he remembered nothing. His mother wept, clawing at the guards, screaming for mercy. Ilara stood above them on the balcony, the memory of his blade still etched in her skin. She could almost feel the phantom scrape where steel had grazed her throat. Kale's roar cut through the clamor. Bring him to the hall. The council gathered again, tension dripping like venom. The boy knelt before the throne, trembling. I did not mean it, he sobbed. I don't know why I did it. Marek leaned lazily against a pillar, smirk sharp as a knife. Convenient, is it not? A boy suddenly driven to madness. Perhaps the goddess has second thoughts about sparing our Luna. The room erupted into snarls and whispers. Ilara stepped forward, her voice slicing through the noise. He is no traitor. He was used. Kale's gaze flickered to hers, unreadable. Explain. She knelt beside the boy, meeting his haunted eyes. He was bound. Not by rope but by will. His mind was not his own. Someone bent it. Riven's eyes narrowed. Sorcery. Gasps filled the chamber. Sorcery was forbidden, dangerous, punishable by death. Ilara rose, facing them all. And who in this fortress wields such power? Every gaze turned slowly toward Marek. For the first time his smirk faltered. Only for a breath. Then it curved back wider. Accusations, Luna. Or desperation. You fear the pack will see you for what you are, so you point fingers. Kale's growl shook the hall. Enough. He stood, towering, golden eyes blazing. This ends now. No more whispers. No more knives in the dark. He descended the steps, stopping inches from Marek. Swear to me, brother. Swear you had no hand in this. Marek held his gaze, unflinching. I swear nothing. The silence was deafening. Kale's fist struck like a hammer, sending Marek crashing to the floor. Wolves roared, some in shock, others in savage approval. But Marek only spat blood, smiling through broken teeth. Hit me all you like, brother. You cannot silence truth. The pack doubts her. And doubt is death. Later in the war room, Kale paced like a caged beast. Maps lay forgotten. His fists bled from striking stone. Ilara entered quietly, though the storm of his presence nearly drove her back out. You should have told me, he snapped without turning. Told you what? That someone tried to kill you before the guards dragged him in. That my pack is rotting from within. That my brother, He broke off, voice raw. She stepped closer. Would it have mattered? You already know Marek poisons them. You've always known. You let him linger because he is blood. But blood can be venom. He whirled on her, eyes burning. You think I do not see that? You think I do not lie awake each night weighing whether to slit his throat or chain him in the dungeon? She didn't flinch. Then stop weighing. Act. His chest heaved. For a long moment, silence pressed between them. Then his voice softened, almost broken. If I kill him, the pack fractures. Half still follow him. Half still believe his lies. And if you don't? She asked quietly. Then he kills me. Or worse, he kills you. And the pack fractures anyway. He stared at her, and for once she saw not just the Alpha, but the man beneath. Tired, torn, carrying the weight of too many lives. You make everything complicated, he muttered. A bitter laugh escaped her. Because I refuse to roll over and die. Their eyes locked, heat sparking in the space between them. For one reckless moment, Cale reached out, his hand brushing her cheek. His thumb lingered against her skin, rough and trembling. Then he pulled away as though burned. Leave me, she should have. But her wolf whispered otherwise. That night, Ilara couldn't sleep. Whispers still slithered through the stone halls, sharper now, edged with fear. Wolves gathered in corners. Their conversations silenced the moment she passed. On the training grounds, she found Riven drilling the young warriors. His movements were precise, brutal, each strike a reminder of discipline. You heard, she said. He didn't pause. The whole fortress heard. Marek bleeds but still speaks. Some listen. Her throat tightened. What if Cale never stops him? Riven struck harder, blade clanging against steel. Then someone else will. She froze. You mean me? His pale eyes met hers. You are Luna. Not by choice, perhaps, but by fate. And fate demands teeth. Her grip tightened on her dagger. For the first time, she understood what Riven was truly saying. If Cale could not kill his brother, she might have to. At dawn, the pack assembled for drills. But instead of unity, wolves divided into clusters, Marek's supporters glaring openly at those loyal to Cale. The air reeked of rebellion. Cale arrived, cloak trailing, eyes blazing. He said nothing at first, letting silence build until every wolf stilled. Then he spoke, voice sharp as a blade. You are wolves, not sheep. You do not whisper in shadows. You do not stab in the dark. If you have something to say, say it. If you have a challenge, make it. But do not tear this pack apart while our enemies gather at our gates. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some lowered their heads. Others growled. And then Marek stepped forward, lip curling in defiance. You speak of unity, brother. But unity is broken the moment you put a cursed Luna on our throne. The pack erupted in snarls, some in agreement, others in fury. Cale bared his teeth. Then challenge me, Marek. Here. Prove your words with blood. The air froze. Direct challenge. Marek smiled. Not yet. When the pack is ready to see what you truly are. And he turned his back on Cale, walking away. His followers trailing behind him. Ilara's heart pounded. War loomed, not just beyond their borders but within their walls. And she knew, with bone-deep certainty, that the next strike wouldn't be a boy with a knife. It would be a brother with an army. Chapter 21, Seeds of Treason. The fortress felt different after Marek's defiance. The air was heavier, laced with tension that even the youngest pups sensed. They barked less. The warriors trained harder, their strikes carrying the weight of anger not spoken aloud. Cale doubled the patrols, stationed guards at the gates day and night, but no blade or spear could guard against whispers. Because whispers had already become roots. Marek worked in shadows. He gathered the discontented, those who had lost kin in Cale's wars, those who feared the goddess favored the Luna more than the Alpha, those who longed for a leader who promised certainty, even if it came in blood. In the old stables, now abandoned, He spoke to them in low, steady tones. Kale has lost the goddess's favor. He kneels to a woman who does not belong to us. He let the trial stone be mocked, and now he lets her speak as though she were Alpha herself. Is this the wolf you would die for? Growls answered him, hungry, restless. Stand with me, Marek whispered, and you stand for the pack, for its purity, for its strength. A dozen voices swore loyalty that night, and by the next moon a dozen more. Ilara knew none of this in detail, but she felt the shift. Eyes followed her wherever she went, and not with the awe they once carried. Now it was suspicion, sometimes hatred. In the kitchens, knives went still when she entered. In the training yards, sparring slowed until silence fell. Her wolf bristled under the weight of their stares. Only a handful still stood close, Riven loyal to Kale without question, and a few younger wolves who admired her defiance. But admiration was fragile. Fear was stronger. One night, Kale entered her chamber without knocking. His cloak was streaked with mud, his hair damp from rain. His eyes burned, but not with fury, something deeper, rawer. "They're gathering," he said. "Marek?" she asked, though she already knew. He nodded. "I should kill him. Tear out his throat before the others. But half the pack would rise against me if I did. Then exile him," she snapped, "and drive him straight into Munveil's arms." His voice cracked like thunder. "Do you not see, Ilara? Every move I make strengthens him. If I spare him, he grows bold. If I kill him, he becomes a martyr. If I exile him, he returns with enemies at his back." He slammed his fist into the wall, stone cracking under his strength. "And still I hesitate. Still I." He broke off, breathing hard. "Still you love him," she finished quietly. His eyes met hers, golden and aching. "He is my brother." Her wolf snarled inside her chest. "Then I will do it. I will cut him down before he can tear this pack apart." Kale crossed the room in a heartbeat, gripping her arms, voice rough. "No. If you spill his blood, they will never forgive you. You will be the outsider who destroyed their bloodline." Her laugh was bitter. "And if I wait, I will be their corpse." They stood locked together, his breath hot against her skin, his grip trembling. For a moment, the storm between them shifted, fury giving way to something hungrier, more dangerous. But he released her, turning away. "You are Luna," he said hoarsely. "And Luna you will remain, no matter what he whispers." Later that night, Ilara found Riven in the courtyard, sharpening his blade beneath the moonlight. "He won't act," she said. Riven didn't look up. "No. He never has." "Then what do we do?" Riven's pale eyes flickered to her. "We prepare for when Marek does." She swallowed hard. "You mean war?" He nodded once. Her wolf growled in agreement, a low rumble in her chest. She had been stolen from her home, forced into a bond she had not chosen. But now this fortress was hers, and she would not surrender it. By dawn, rumors spread of wolves slipping away in the night to meet Marek. Supplies missing from the storerooms. Blades vanishing from the armory. When Kale called his council again, only half attended. The empty chairs spoke louder than words. Kale's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He only dismissed the council with a curt wave. Afterward, Ilara cornered him in the war room. "You can't ignore this. If you do, he will take everything." His voice was low, ragged. "I am trying to hold the pack together." She stepped close, eyes blazing. "And while you hold, he pulls it apart. You think you can save them all, Kale. But some are already lost." His gaze dropped to hers, something breaking in his expression. "And what if I lose you in the process?" Her breath caught. For a moment, everything stilled. The war, the whispers, even the air itself. "You won't," she whispered back. But the truth coiled in her chest like a serpent. Because if Kale would not stop his brother, she might have to. Chapter 22, The First Strike. The rebellion did not begin with war horns. It began with silence. On the third night after Cale's failed council, the eastern gate stood unmanned. Torches that should have burned bright were cold. Guards that should have been vigilant were gone. By morning, 3 patrols had vanished. Wolves who had sworn loyalty to Cale at the blood oath, now missing without trace. Cale's roar shook the fortress. Find them! But Ilara already knew where they had gone. That evening, scouts brought word from the valley. A band of wolves, marked with Cale's sigil crossed out in blood, had raided a caravan. They carried off food, weapons, even prisoners. Their leader had not hidden his face. Marek had stood at the front, eyes blazing gold, declaring himself Alpha of the true wolves. The fortress descended into chaos. Warriors demanded Cale crush him. Elders begged for peace, muttering that blood between brothers cursed a pack for generations. But it was the youngest who looked most torn between the Alpha who had raised them and the commander who had trained them. The split was no longer whispers. It was war. Ilara found Cale in the armory, strapping on his chestplate with movements sharp enough to bruise. His hands shook, not from fear but from rage strangled too long. "He's declared himself," she said. Cale's laugh was broken. "Then he's declared his death. You can't wait anymore." His golden eyes snapped to hers. "And what would you have me do, Ilara? Hunt him down like prey? He is my blood." Her wolf snarled, pressing hot against her skin. "And what am I, Cale? What of the bond we did not choose? You will fight every battle except the one that threatens your own home." His chest heaved, jaw clenched so tight it could have shattered stone. Then softer roar. "Do you think I don't bleed every time he defies me? That I don't feel the goddess watching, waiting for me to choose which half of my soul to tear away?" For the first time, Ilara saw not the Alpha but the man beneath. Broken, cornered, desperate. And she hated how it made her want to touch him. That night, the rebellion struck again. This time not in valleys, but at the fortress itself. The western wall trembled with fire. Shadows leapt as wolves surged from the trees, howls sharp as blades. Marek's forces had come. Cale shifted mid-run, his form exploding into massive black fur, claws like hooked steel. He barreled into the fray, a storm of fury, scattering rebels like leaves. Ilara's wolf tore through alongside him, white fur gleaming in firelight. She ripped into traitors without hesitation, their blood hot on her tongue. And for the first time, she felt them together not as strangers bound by fate, but as warriors bound by war. Through the chaos, Marek appeared, towering, golden-furred, eyes burning with triumph. He did not strike Cale at once. He circled mocking. "You've grown slow, brother. Too busy letting a human bitch whisper in your ear." Cale snarled, fur bristling. "You shame our bloodline." Marek's laugh was wild. "No, Cale. Save it. From weakness. From betrayal. From you." They clashed, black against gold, claws and teeth tearing through firelit smoke. The ground shook with the force of their battle. Ilara tried to reach them, but rebel wolves closed in around her, cutting her off. She fought like fury incarnate, yet for every throat she tore out, another came. From the corner of her eye, she saw Cale falter, Marek's claw tearing across his flank, blood spraying dark. Her wolf howled, desperate. She lunged, breaking through the circle, slamming into Marek with a snarl that rattled bone. Her jaws closed on his shoulder, ripping deep. He roared, staggering back. For the first time, his eyes flickered, not with triumph, but with rage at her audacity. "You!" he spat, shifting back into human form, blood streaking his chest. "You do not belong here. You are the rot in our pack." Cale, panting, shifted back too, blood dripping down his side. His voice was hoarse, furious. "Touch her again and I will end you." The brothers faced each other, the war howling around them. Marek's smile was sharp, cruel. "Then end me, Cale. Prove to them all you are as faithless as I say." And with that, he signaled his wolves. They pulled back, retreating into the night, leaving fire and corpses in their wake. Kale stood bleeding, staring after his brother, torn between victory and ruin. Ilara's hand closed around his arm, steadying him. The war had begun, and there would be no turning back. Chapter 23: The Cracks in the Pack. The fortress stank of blood and smoke. By dawn, the western wall was half collapsed, charred beams sagging like broken ribs. Wolves paced the courtyards, torn between grief for the dead and fury at the betrayal. Every howl carried pain. Every silence carried suspicion. Kale sat in the council chamber, his side freshly bandaged, though blood still seeped through the cloth. His face was stone, but his golden eyes flickered like dying embers. The elders filled the circle, voices raised in accusation. "You promised safety," one barked. "You let your brother walk free," another snarled. "He fights like an alpha. Perhaps he should sit that throne." The words struck like blows. Kale's jaw flexed. "He is a traitor. And what does that make you?" the oldest elder spat. "A fool too weak to stop him." The chamber erupted into shouts, fury bouncing off stone walls. Some demanded blood. Others whispered of truce. But all shared one truth. Their alpha was faltering. Ilara watched from the shadows, her wolf prowling beneath her skin. She saw what Kale refused to. Power slipping through his fingers. If Marek struck again, the pack would break. When the council adjourned in chaos, Ilara followed Kale into the hall. His shoulders were stiff, his stride uneven from the wound. "They smell weakness," she said. His hand slammed against the stone wall. "They smell blood. My blood. His blood. Our father's blood. You can't keep bleeding for him." He turned, eyes wild. "He is my brother." Her wolf snarled, meeting his fury head-on. "And what am I, Kale? What are your people? Do we not bleed too?" The silence between them was jagged, dangerous. Then softer, his voice cracked. "You think I don't know? You think I don't wake every night to his voice in my dreams, asking why I wasn't enough to keep him from this?" Ilara's breath caught. She had seen him furious, arrogant, unyielding. But never like this. Never breaking. Her hand hovered near his cheek but stopped short. Touching him now would mean something she couldn't take back. Instead, she whispered, "The war isn't waiting for you to mourn. Either you take him down or he takes you down." By evening, rebellion spread like rot. Scouts reported that 3 border villages had sworn to Marek. One chieftain had gone so far as to brand Kale's sigil into the dirt and spit on it. Fear coiled through the fortress like smoke. Wolves whispered in corridors. Soldiers trained, but their eyes flicked to the forest as if expecting shadows to pour through at any moment. Ilara walked among them, listening. Some cursed Marek. Others cursed Kale. Most cursed fate. But one phrase repeated again and again. This bond brought ruin. She felt it like knives in her gut. They blamed her. That night, Ilara stood alone on the battlements, the moon heavy above. Her wolf pressed restless against her skin, demanding action. "You see it too," she whispered. "This pack will not hold unless one brother falls." The wolf's growl thrummed through her bones. "Then strike first." Her hands clenched on the stone. Could she end Marek herself? End this spiral before Kale destroyed himself trying? Her human heart hesitated. But her wolf already knew the answer. Inside the fortress, Kale lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams. Sleep would not come. Marek's words echoed like poison. "You are weak. You are faithless. You are not Alpha." His wolf growled deep, restless, demanding blood. And for the first time, Kale wondered if the council was right. If perhaps he was not enough. The fortress was no longer one pack. It was 2 packs wearing the same skin, waiting for the first strike to decide which would live. Ilara knew it. Kale knew it. Even the goddess, watching from the shadows, must have known it. The cracks in the pack had become fractures. And soon they would shatter. Chapter 24: The Wolf's Gambit. Ilara did not wait for Kale's order. She knew it would never come. The Alpha was torn, bleeding, trapped in chains of brotherhood too heavy to break. If Marek was to be stopped, it would not be Kale who struck first. It would be her. She moved like shadow through the fortress that night. The halls were restless, filled with mutters of rebellion and prayers to the goddess. None noticed the pale figure slipping through torchlight, a satchel slung across her shoulder. Inside it, dried wolfsbane, silver-tipped knives, a map of the valley. Tools of war. Tools of treachery if anyone found them on her. Her wolf pressed eager against her skin. Hunt him. End this. Ilara's hands tightened. She was no assassin, but she was a survivor. And survival demanded ruthlessness. At the stables, she saddled a black mare, silent but swift. The moon lit the path ahead like a blade drawn against the dark. She did not look back. Not at the fortress. Not at Kale. Because if she saw him standing there, bleeding loyalty to a brother who wanted him dead, she might falter. And faltering meant death. By dawn, she reached the foothills where Marek's rebels had gathered. Smoke curled from campfires. Banners of black cloth marked with blood-red slashes waved in the breeze. Ilara dismounted, cloaked herself in a hood, and slipped into the shadows. It wasn't hard. Wolves were arrogant when they thought themselves safe. She saw them, men and women who once trained at Kale's side, now laughing beneath Marek's banner. She smelled the rot of betrayal on their skin. And then she saw him, Marek. Golden hair glinting like the sun, eyes burning hotter than any fire. He stood before his pack, speaking words that twisted truth into weapon. Kale has grown soft. He bows to a human bond, to a foreign curse. But I, his voice thundered, I fight for wolves, for freedom, for the blood that makes us strong. The rebels howled their agreement, the sound splitting the morning. Ilara's wolf snarled, aching to leap, to silence him. But Ilara waited. She needed a moment when he stood alone. One chance came that night. Marek left the fires to walk the ridge, his shoulders relaxed, his confidence absolute. Why would he fear? He had an army at his back, and a brother too weak to strike. He did not see Ilara until her knife pressed cold against his throat. Quiet, she hissed, her hood falling back to reveal white-hot eyes. Or I end you here. For a heartbeat he stilled. Then he laughed. Course he laughed. You, he said, lips curling. The little bondmate. The rot I warned him of. Ilara's hand trembled, blade biting deeper. You've torn this pack apart. I've freed it. You've damned it. Their wolves roared against each other, snarls vibrating the air. Marek tilted his head, unconcerned by the steel at his throat. If you kill me, do you think they'll follow Kale? Well, they'll say the human which struck down their true alpha in the dark. They'll rip him apart for weakness, and you along with him. Ilara froze. Her wolf snarled, demanding blood. But her mind saw the truth in his words. Strike him down here, and Kale lost anyway. Marek leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. You're clever enough to know. You're strong enough to feel it. You don't belong at Kale's side. You belong at mine. Her stomach twisted. I would rather die. Marek's grin sharpened. Perhaps you will. In one motion, he knocked the blade aside, faster than she expected. His hand clamped around her wrist, twisting until bone cracked. Ilara gasped, knife clattering into the dirt. You thought you could kill me in the dark, little wolf, he growled. You think fate chose you to break me? Well, fate chose you to break him. His grip tightened until stars burst in her vision. But before he could finish, a howl split the night. Deep, thunderous, unmistakable. Oh. Marek's eyes widened, then narrowed. He shoved Ilara to the ground, stepping back into the shadows. Run back to him, Marek sneered. Tell him you failed. Tell him I let you live so he'd know what mercy feels like before I tear it from him. And then he was gone. Ilara staggered to her feet, clutching her broken wrist. Rage and shame burned hotter than pain. She had come to end this war, and instead she had nearly ended herself. Kale appeared moments later, black fur shimmering as he shifted back, golden eyes blazing with fury. "What in the goddess's name were you doing here?" he roared. Ilara swallowed, chest heaving. "What, you wouldn't?" "I tried to end it." Kale's face hardened, fury giving way to something worse, betrayal. "You went alone. Behind my back. You were never going to act. I am Alpha. You're a coward." The word ripped through the night like thunder. Both froze, the silence after more dangerous than the scream itself. Kale's hands clenched at his sides. His voice was low, trembling. "Leave. Before I forget the bond that ties us." Ilara's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to strike, to demand he see that she had risked everything because she believed in him more than he believed in himself. But instead, she mounted her horse with shaking hands. She did not look back. Chapter 25. Stripped of voice. The fortress greeted Ilara not with relief, but with suspicion. Eyes followed her as she passed through the gates, eyes that had heard whispers already. That she had gone into Marek's camp, that she had spoken with him, that she had returned alive when others had not. She could taste the mistrust in the air like iron on her tongue. Kale did not summon her to his chambers. He summoned her to the council. The chamber was crowded, wolves pressed shoulder to shoulder, their grief and anger a storm waiting to break. Kale sat at the head, his wound freshly bound, his golden gaze cold as winter. Ilara entered, wrist bound in splints. The murmurs began immediately. She failed him. She betrayed him. She should never have been bonded. Kale raised his hand and silence fell. "Ilara went to Marek without my order," he said, voice sharp, cutting. "She acted as assassin, not Luna. She put herself, and all of us, at risk." Gasps rippled. The elders leaned forward, hungry for blood. Kale's next words fell like an axe. "Until further notice, Ilara has no seat in this council. No voice in our decisions." The air thickened with shock. Wolves muttered, some nodding, others looking away in unease. Ilara's chest constricted. "Kale! Silence," he snapped. "You disobeyed me. You endangered us all. This council cannot be led by a bondmate who places herself above her alpha." The words stung sharper than claws. Not because he spoke them before the pack, but because he spoke them as truth. Ilara swallowed hard, forcing her voice steady. Better a Luna who risks her life to save the pack than one who sits silent while it burns. The council erupted in uproar. Some shouted for her banishment. Others barked that Kale was too harsh. But one thing was clear. Division had deepened. Kale slammed his fist into the stone table. "Enough. This pack follows me. And I say this matter is closed." He rose, the meeting ended. Ilara remained standing, her broken wrist throbbing, her pride bleeding worse. She had been silenced. Cast aside before the very wolves she had bled to protect. And in the corner she caught sight of one elder's smirk. A smirk that said, "Marek was right about you." After, she stormed into the courtyard, fists clenched. Her wolf raged inside her, pacing, snarling, demanding they tear the fortress apart brick by brick. Kale followed, his presence looming. "You humiliated me," she hissed, spinning on him. "You humiliated yourself," he shot back. "What would you have me do? Let the council see me bend to your recklessness. I would have you fight for this pack with more than words." His jaw tightened. "Do you think I don't fight every day? Do you think leadership is just claws and blood? I keep this fortress standing while my brother tears at its walls, and you—" His voice broke, then hardened. "You would rather see me damned than patient." Ilara stepped closer, fury trembling through her. "No, Kale. I would rather see you alive." Their eyes locked, gold against storm gray, a clash of will and pain. For a heartbeat, the bond flared hot, tugging them toward each other. Toward touch, toward surrender. But Kale turned away. Stay out of my war, Ilara, he said, voice low, final. Or you won't survive it. That night, Marek's banners rose over yet another village. Scouts reported defections doubling. Warriors, hunters, even elders swearing loyalty to the rebel Alpha. Kale clenched his teeth as the reports piled high. His council urged compromise. His soldiers demanded blood. His people whispered of weakness. And through it all, Ilara remained silent. Not by choice but by decree. Her silence was its own cage. One she would not remain in for long. Chapter 26, Shadows in the Fortress. The fortress no longer felt like home. Felt like a cage filled with whispers. Ilara walked the halls, her head held high, though every step carried the weight of silence. Wolves who once greeted her with respect now averted their eyes, or stared too long, suspicion heavy in their gaze. She had been stripped of her seat, her voice, her standing. To them she was no longer Luna, just the bondmate who failed. But wolves underestimate silence. Silence listens. Silence learns. And Ilara was listening. At the well, two warriors muttered while filling buckets. He's right, you know. Marek. Kale's weak. Careful. Speak too loud and you'll hang for treason. Better to hang than starve. Did you hear? Marek's men raided the granaries at Red Hollow. They'll feast for weeks while our rations rot. Ilara walked past as though deaf. But her wolf memorized every word. In the kitchens, a cook hissed to another. They say Marek protects his omegas. Lets them speak in council. Kale would never. He's not our alpha. Not yet. Again Ilara said nothing. But her wolf's hackles rose. By nightfall she had heard enough. The rebellion was not only at their gates. It was already inside their walls. Kale did not see it. Or refuse to. He sat in council chambers every day. His voice hoarse from shouting down elders. His patience fraying as reports grew darker. Yet he still clung to control, to order, to the fragile illusion that the pack was whole. Ilara saw what he could not. The pack was splitting by the hour. And silence was her weapon. That evening, she called the women and omegas to the lower courtyard. Not loudly. Not publicly. But quietly, with whispers and nods. They came in twos and threes, eyes wary, hands rough with labor. Ilara stood before them, her splintered wrist aching, her pride still raw. You've heard what they say, she began, voice steady. That I am nothing. That you are nothing. That we have no voice, no power, no place in this war. The crowd shifted uneasily. Few nodded. Ilara's wolf pressed against her skin, lending strength. But I tell you this. Marek would use you as pawns, just as Kale's council ignores you. Neither brother fights for us. So we fight for ourselves. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Some shook their heads, frightened. Others straightened, fire sparking in their eyes. One Omega girl whispered, "And if Kale finds out?" Ilara smiled, fierce. "Then he will remember that Aluna's silence does not mean her death." From that night on, whispers shifted. Not all wolves turned to Marek. Some turned to her. The cooks who fed the soldiers. The stable boys who saddled the scouts. The women who mended wounds in the infirmary. The Omegas who swept the halls. They began to listen to Ilara. And when you control the forgotten, you control the fortress. But treachery runs both ways. One night, as Ilara dismissed her secret gathering, a shadow slipped from the courtyard. A boy no older than 16. She caught the scent too late. Marek's scent. Her stomach dropped. The boy was running straight to a rebel messenger. If Marek learned she was building her own power, he would not hesitate. He would use it to break Kale. Ilara's wolf surged, hot and vicious. Stop him. Hunt him. She followed, silent as smoke, until the boy ducked into the stables. He fumbled with the reins of a horse, desperate to flee. "Ilara!" he gasped when she stepped from the shadows. His voice cracked. I wasn't." "You were," she said. Her knife gleamed in the moonlight. The boy's eyes widened in terror. "Please." He promised me food. A place. For a moment, Ilara's chest tightened. He was just a child. Hungry. Afraid. But her wolf whispered cold. He chose. And if you let him go, the pack burns. The boy trembled, torn between begging and bolting. You won't kill me. You're not like him. Ilara's hand shook. Then steadied. The knife struck swift and clean. The boy fell without a sound. She stood over him, chest heaving, blood dripping from her blade. Her wolf was silent now. Sated. Ilara wiped the knife on her cloak and whispered to the still night. Better your blood than the pack's. But deep inside, her human heart whispered another truth. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. Chapter 27. Suspicion in the Alpha's den. The fortress walls groaned with winter's weight. Snow clung to the battlements like ash, muffling the growl of restless wolves inside. Kale stalked the war chamber, shoulders taut, eyes burning with sleepless rage. Reports piled on the long oak table. Raids, shortages, whispers of desertion. Each parchment felt heavier than steel. But none pressed on him harder than the news delivered at dawn. A boy's body had been found in the stables. Lashed throat. No sign of struggle. No tracks in the snow. A silent kill. Kale had seen enough battlefields to know what that meant. This was no accident. It was a warning. The council murmured as the boy's blood dried outside. He was only 16. Too young to betray us. Or too young to keep secrets. Kale slammed his fist against the table. The wood cracked. Enough. Whoever did this silenced him before he could speak. That alone tells me the boy carried truth too dangerous to reach our enemies. But truth had a way of staining. And some stains pointed toward Ilara. By mid-morning, Kale found her in the courtyard. She stood with a cluster of omegas, distributing bandages and herbs as though nothing had changed. Her splinted wrists still stiff, but her presence unbowed. The wolves around her looked up to her, not as fallen Luna, but as something else. Quiet leader. A whisper of rebellion cloaked in care. Kale's chest tightened. Was she saving them or stealing them from him? Ilara! His voice cut through the air. The omegas scattered like startled birds. Only she remained, lifting her gaze to meet his. No fear. No apology. You've heard, she said flatly. The boy, Kale growled. They found him dead. Throat cut. Her eyes flickered, just enough to betray recognition before she masked it. And you think I held the knife? Kale stepped closer, close enough to smell the iron tang still clinging faintly to her cloak. Or was it his imagination, sharpened by mistrust? I think, he said slowly, that you've been gathering shadows around you. Megas, servants, women who should fear war, not join it. And now one of Marek's spies lies cold. Ilara's lips curved in a bitter smile. So the council finally whispers what you've been too proud to ask yourself. Answer me, Kale snapped. His wolf surged, demanding truth. Ilara did not flinch. Would you rather I sit idle while your pack starves? While your brother's wolves whisper promises in our ears? Someone has to keep them from breaking. If you cannot, I will. Her defiance seared through him, equal parts admiration and fury. You think this helps me, he snarled. You think feeding their hope makes them loyal to me? No, she said softly. It makes them loyal to me. The admission struck harder than any blade. By nightfall, the fortress buzzed with suspicion. Wolves eyed Ilara in the halls, muttering of treason, of secrets, of a Luna-turned shadow queen. Kale called the council. They demanded her confinement. She divides us, one elder spat. She bleeds trust from within, another added. If she stays free, she will hand us to Marek without lifting a claw. Kale's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. His wolf howled inside him, torn between instinct and bond. Imprison her, and he broke her spirit. Defend her, and he risked his pack. Silence stretched like a blade at his throat. Finally Kale rose. His voice was iron. She stays. The council erupted. Protests, curses, threats. Cale's glare silenced them. Ilara is mine. And until I see proof, not whispers, she will remain free. Later, in the solitude of their chamber, Kale faced her again. The firelight painted her face in gold and shadow. You push me to a cliff's edge, he said hoarsely. One step and I lose my pack. One step back and I lose you. Ilara met his gaze, unyielding. Perhaps the only way forward is to burn the cliff. Her words were reckless, dangerous, and yet Kale felt the faintest spark of belief. Maybe she was right. Maybe survival meant fire, not stone. But even as he reached for her, doubt gnawed at him. If the knife had been in her hand, would she tell him? Or would she smile in silence as the fortress bled? Chapter 28. The Council's Betrayal. The council chamber reeked of smoke and sweat. Every torch along the stone walls spat flames as though furious with the night itself. Kale strode in first, Ilara behind him, her wrists still bound, her cloak trailing like a shadow on the floor. Murmurs rippled as the elders turned to see her. Not as guest, not as healer, not even as Kale's mate, but as accused. She carried no chains. That alone drew growls of outrage. Blasphemy, spat Elder Vena, her silver hair gleaming in the torchlight. A woman suspected of murder walks into council like royalty. She is Luna no longer, said Joran, his voice thick with contempt. She is a threat. Your mercy weakens us, Alpha. Kale slammed his hand onto the oak table. My mercy keeps this pack from tearing itself apart. You will remember who commands here. Yet even as the echo of his strike filled the chamber, Kale sensed it, loyalty slipping like water between his claws. Too many eyes burned with rebellion. Too many mouths waited for the moment to shout treason. Ilara stood straighter, gaze locked not on the elders but on Kale himself, as though daring him to choose. The accusations fell like arrows. She recruits servants. She whispers of rebellion. She gives comfort to spies. She bleeds our strength with her presence. And then the dagger. She murdered the boy. The chamber roared. Kale's wolf pressed against his skin, ready to tear the throat from whoever spoke, but Ilara's voice rose sharp and cold. I did not kill him. Every head turned. Her eyes swept the table, steady, burning. If I wanted to silence him, I would not leave his body in your stables like some butcher's warning. I would have fed him to the snow and left no trace. Do not mistake me for a fool. Gasps spread through the council. She had confessed to knowing how a spy could vanish. It was bold. Too bold. Kale clenched his jaw. Enough. You will not condemn her on suspicion. But the trap had already been sprung. Joran leaned forward, lips curling. Then let her prove her loyalty. Let her stand trial the old way. Hush fell. Even the torches stilled, as though listening. The old way. Trial by blood. Ilara's brows arched. And if I survive? Then the spirits themselves have spoken, Joran said. But if you fall, Alpha, your mercy will be your undoing. Kale dismissed the council with fire in his eyes. But when the chamber cleared, only he and Ilara remained, the silence between them like a wound. You should have held your tongue, he hissed. You gave them teeth. She met his fury with a calm that unnerved him. Better they bite with teeth I can see than poison me from the shadows. You'd risk your life for that? I'd risk more. Do you not see it, Kale? They will not bow to you while they believe I am a dagger in their midst. Let them test me. Let me bleed in their sight. If I live, they will have no excuse. And if you die, her lips curved faintly, then your war ends before it begins. The words struck like ice. She was not only wagering her life, she was wagering his throne, his legacy, his pack. Kale's wolf snarled inside him, desperate to reject the notion, desperate to shield her from the very trial she invoked. Yet something in her eyes stopped him. Defiance. Resolve. Fire he could not douse. The fortress did not sleep that night. Word of Ilara's trial spread like wildfire. Wolves crowded the courtyards, whispering of curses and salvation. Some prayed for her fall. Others prayed for her survival, though they dared not say it aloud. Cale stood at the highest balcony, watching the restless tide below. His chest ached with the weight of decision. He wanted to forbid it, to lock her away, to silence the council, to crush rebellion with claw and fang. But he knew the truth. If he spared her trial, the council would turn. Not against her, but against him. At dawn the drums would call, and Ilara would bleed for his crown. In their chamber, Ilara sat at the hearth, unflinching as she bound her wrist tighter with fresh cloth, preparing not as a victim, but as a warrior dressing her wound before battle. Cale entered silently, watching her in the fire's glow. He had seen her fierce, seen her broken, seen her stubborn, but never like this. "You think you'll win," he said finally. Her gaze lifted to his. "I know I must." He sank to one knee before her, hands gripping her so tightly his claws pricked her skin. "If you fall, I will burn them all. Every council seat, every wolf who calls for your death. Do you hear me?" She studied him, her voice quiet but unyielding. "If I fall, Cale, you must not burn. You must rise. You must win. Promise me." He shook his head, anguish tearing at him. "I cannot promise what I do not believe." Her fingers brushed his jaw, a fleeting touch that seared more than any flame. "Then believe me instead." The drums thundered at dawn. Wolves gathered in a ring of snow and stone. The old trial ground, where law bent to blood and spirits chose the innocent. Ilara stood at the center, cloak cast aside, shoulders squared. Across from her, the council's chosen champion stepped forward, a beast of a man, scarred and hulking, eyes black with bloodlust. Trial by blood. One combat, no quarter. If she survived, the spirits absolved her. If she fell, she was guilty by death. Cale stood at the edge of the ring, every muscle coiled, every instinct screaming to intervene. But the laws of his pack shackled him more tightly than chains. The drums ceased. The fight began. Chapter 29, Trial by Blood. The circle of snow closed like jaws. Every wolf stood silent, breaths steaming in the morning air. The ground was white, but soon it would be red. Cale's chest thundered with his wolf's rage, claws biting crescents into his palms. Every instinct demanded he tear the circle apart, seize Ilara, and drag her from this madness. But the law of the trial was older than his crown, older than his throne. Break it now, and the council would claim he ruled with no spirit's blessing. He had to let her fight, and she had to survive. Ilara flexed her splinted wrist once, twice. She had nothing but a dagger and the unyielding resolve in her gaze. Across from her the champion, Garan, a brute bred for war, rolled his shoulders, his massive frame shaking with anticipation. "You don't belong here, Luna," he snarled. His teeth flashed, too white against his scarred face. "One strike, and this farce ends." Ilara did not answer. Her silence enraged him more than any insult. The elder raised his hand. The drums beat once, twice, then cut off. The fight began. Garan lunged like a storm, swinging a hammering fist that could have crushed bone. Ilara ducked low, snow spraying as the blow whistled past her head. She darted aside, agile as a shadow, forcing him to chase. Cale's wolf strained forward, every nerve screaming as Garen's strikes grew closer, heavier. The crowd roared with every miss, a frenzy of bloodlust and fear. Ilara's dagger flashed, grazing Garen's arm. A shallow cut, but enough to paint his rage deeper. He bellowed, shifting halfway, claws sprouting, eyes glowing like coal. "No shifting," barked the elder. But Garan ignored him. His claws tore through the air, aiming for Ilara's throat. Gasps rippled. The law was clear. No wolf form in trial combat. Yet no elder moved to stop him. Their silence was a verdict of its own. Cale roared, his voice shaking the stone walls. "Hold him back." No one moved. This wasn't a trial. It was an execution. Ilara stumbled back, blood blooming along her cheek as Garen's claw grazed her skin. She tasted iron, blinked through pain, and tightened her grip on the dagger. Her heart thundered, but her eyes never left his. "You call this proof?" she spat, circling him. "A wolf too cowardly to fight as a man." The insult seared Garen's pride. He lunged again, too reckless, too blind with fury. Ilara slid aside at the last moment, plunging her dagger into his ribs. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to slow. Enough to shift the rhythm. The crowd gasped as Garan staggered. Blood stained the snow. But Kale knew this wasn't over. Garan was wounded, yes, but a wounded wolf was twice as dangerous. With a howl, Garan slammed her down into the snow. The dagger flew from her grip, vanishing in the drift. His claws pressed against her throat, one strike away from ending her. Kale's vision burned red. His wolf clawed at the inside of his skin, desperate to break free, to kill Garan, to tear the council limb from limb. Ilara's lips moved. Not a scream, not a plea. A word. Kale couldn't hear it, but he saw the shape of her mouth. In a burst of strength, Ilara drove her splinted wrist upward, the wooden brace smashing into Garen's jaw with a crack. He reeled, stunned for a breath. Just enough. Her hand shot to the snow, finding the dagger's hilt by sheer instinct. With a cry that split the silence, she drove it into his throat. Blood fountained. Garan staggered, choking, claws grasping at nothing. Then he collapsed into the snow, red pooling around him like spilled wine. The circle erupted. Shouts, gasps, howls of disbelief. Ilara rose slowly, chest heaving, face streaked with blood that wasn't hers. She pulled the dagger free, held it aloft, and stared straight at the council. "Is that proof enough?" For a long moment no one breathed. Then Elder Vena, voice trembling with fury, spat. "The spirits favor her." The words bound them. Tradition was law. Ilara had survived. She was absolved. Kale stepped into the circle, striding toward her. He ignored the blood, ignored the glares, ignored the whispers of treachery. His hand gripped hers, holding it high for all to see. "She is mine," he growled, voice echoing against the stone. "And through blood, she has proved what none of you would believe. Doubt her again, and you doubt me." The pack howled, some in loyalty, others in fear. But none dared speak against the trial's verdict. Still, Kale saw it in their eyes. The council would not forget. And the war within his walls had only just begun. Chapter 30 Wolves in the Shadows. The trial ground still smelled of Garen's blood when the fortress bells tolled dusk. Snow fell thick, as if to bury the memory of what had been done in that circle. But the pack remembered. Wolves always remembered. Kale escorted Ilara through the throng, his arm wrapped firmly around her waist. She walked upright despite her wounds, her chin high, her eyes defiant. To falter now would be to give the council their victory. Whispers parted around them. The spirits chose her. "She's stronger than Garan. She's cursed." Every murmur was a blade, but she bore it like armor. Once within their chamber, Kale shut the heavy door and braced his hands against it. For the first time that day, he let the mask slip. His chest heaved, his wolf still prowling close to the surface. "You should be dead," he rasped. Ilara lowered herself before the hearth, pulling her blood-stained cloak tighter. "And yet I'm not." His fists clenched. "You baited him. You pushed him to break the law." Her gaze flicked to his. "Would you rather I'd let him kill me?" He froze. The fire crackled, mocking his silence. "You think I don't know what the council wanted?" she pressed, her voice rising. "They chose Garan because they knew he'd cheat. They wanted me torn apart so you'd lose both your mate and your crown. But they underestimated me. And maybe Kale." She leaned forward, her eyes catching the firelight. "Maybe they underestimated you too." Kale crossed the room in 2 strides, seizing her wrist. His grip was firm, almost painful, but his voice was hoarse with something between rage and reverence. "Never again. Do you hear me? Never put yourself in their hands again. Ilara's lips curved into the faintest smile. If I hadn't, they'd never have believed you again. Now they must. He released her, torn between shaking her and worshipping her. Instead, he sank before her, pressing his forehead to hers. Spirits help me, he whispered. I would burn this world for you. But while fire softened Cale's heart, frost hardened the council's resolve. That night, in the lower chambers of the fortress, the elders gathered in secret. No torches blazed here, only candles, their smoke curling like serpents in the stale air. Joran slammed a fist against the stone table. She should not have lived. That trial was a farce. The spirits mock us. Vena's eyes narrowed. The spirits mock nothing. But perhaps they have plans we cannot see. Ilara's survival only makes her more dangerous. The pack already murmurs of her strength. Then we silence those murmurs, another growled. The Alpha cannot see what she is. But we can. And how do you propose we silence her? Vena asked coldly. Joran's lips curled. Accidents happen. Wolves vanish. If she bleeds again, the Alpha cannot shield her twice. The candles flickered as if recoiling from his words. Careful, Vena warned. Strike her wrong and you may strike Cale instead. And then you'll find the fire he holds back burning us all. But the seed had been sown. The shadows were stirring. Back in their chamber, silence lay heavy between Cale and Ilara. She dozed near the hearth, exhaustion claiming her at last. Cale remained awake, pacing like a caged beast. He replayed every strike, every drop of her blood, every breath that had almost been her last. His wolf raged at the thought of her life hanging on the council's blade. Yet beneath the fury pulsed something else, pride. She had stood in the circle and carved survival out of certain death. She had forced the council to kneel to their own laws. She had proved herself in ways even Cale could not deny. She was more than his Luna. She was a storm he could not contain. And he no longer wanted to. Before dawn, Ilara stirred, sensing his restless pacing. You're brooding, she murmured, her voice rough from sleep. Cale turned to her, firelight casting shadows across his face. I'm calculating. Her brows lifted. Calculating what? How many wolves I'll have to kill when the council tries again. She sat up slowly, pain etched in her movements, but her smile was sharp. You think they'll dare so soon? They've already dared once, he said flatly. They'll not stop until one of us lies in the ground. Ilara studied him for a long moment. Then we don't wait for them to strike. We strike first. Cale froze. Her words were colder than steel. You want to start a war inside my walls? He asked. I want to end one, she countered. You can keep patching wounds and chasing whispers, or you can cut out the rot before it spreads. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then Cale's lips curled, not in scorn, but in something dangerously close to admiration. You're more wolf than half my council, he murmured. Ilara's gaze held his, steady as stone. Then let me fight like one. The first light of dawn painted the fortress in silver. Outside, the pack stirred, uncertain, restless. They had seen blood spilled in the circle, but they had not yet chosen whom to follow. Inside, in the Alpha's den, two hearts beat with the same fury. Cale knew the council's betrayal would come. Ilara knew the only way to survive was to face it head-on. Together they stood at the cliff's edge, not as Alpha and prisoner, not even as reluctant mates, but as something far more dangerous. Partners in fire. And as the wolves of the fortress raised their heads to the dawn, the storm within those stone walls had only just begun. Epilogue, the howl beyond the walls. Snow fell in silence. The fortress, scarred by suspicion and blood, seemed to hold its breath as if waiting for a verdict it could not yet name. Cale stood on the northern battlements, his cloak snapping in the wind. The world stretched white and endless before him, broken only by the black line of the forest. Somewhere beyond those trees, his brother Marek sharpened his claws and gathered his armies. But Kale no longer feared the coming war. Not in the way he once had. Because now he was no longer fighting alone. Ilara approached, her steps steady despite her wounds. She carried no crown, no title, yet the wolves below already watched her with a mix of awe and dread. Survival in the trial had marked her more deeply than any ceremony could. "You watch the horizon as though it might answer you," she said, stopping beside him. Kale's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Perhaps I hope it will." "And what do you hope to hear?" "That the war will wait." His voice was low, edged with truth. "That the council will fall silent. That the blood already spilled will be enough." Ilara leaned on the parapet, her breath forming pale clouds in the frozen air. "You know none of that will come." He turned to her, his eyes darker than the winter sky. "Then tell me what will." Her answer was simple. "More blood. But not ours." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Kale laughed softly, a bitter sound carried off by the wind. "You speak of killing as though it were prayer," he murmured. Ilara's gaze never wavered. "Prayer never saved me. But blood has." From the courtyard below, a lone wolf's howl rose, long, mournful, but tinged with defiance. Others joined, one after another, until the air shook with the chorus. It was not for Kale. It was not for the council. It was for her. Ilara stiffened, but Kale only watched her, a strange fire in his eyes. "Do you hear them?" he asked. "They think I've won them," she whispered. "Not think," Kale corrected. "No." She turned to him then, and for the first time since the circle of blood, uncertainty flickered in her gaze. "And you? Do you know me, Kale? Or do you only want to believe you do?" His wolf surged inside him, demanding he claim, demanding he mark, demanding he silence doubt with possession. But Kale, for once, did not listen to the beast. Instead, he lifted her hand and pressed it against his chest, over the steady thunder of his heart. "I don't know you," he admitted, voice raw. "Not yet. But I intend to." Her lips parted, a question trembling there, but the sound of the outer bells cut through the night before she could speak. Kale froze. Those bells were not rung for ceremony, nor council, nor feast. They were rung for war. From the forest's edge, horns blared, a deep, bone-shaking sound that carried across the snow. Shadows moved in the tree-line, vast and endless. Marek's wolves had come. The fortress erupted in chaos. Wolves scrambled to arms, bells tolled louder, the gates thundered as guards rushed to bar them. Kale's eyes locked with Ilara's. The council's betrayal. The trial by blood. Every wound, every doubt, every whisper. All of it burned away beneath this truth. The war had arrived. Kale seized her hand. "Stay at my side." Her answer was steady, cold, unshaken. "Only if you stay at mine." Together they turned toward the storm. And as the horns sounded again, deeper, hungrier, the night carried a single promise. The blood war had only just begun.